Chapter 3559. Qin Feiyang's pupils constricted. Even the Dragon King, who ruled over the dragons, was so afraid? No kidding, right? Although he didn't know how strong the Dragon King was, as the ruler of the dragon race, he must be the top existence in the Sky Cloud realm. If even he was worried, how terrifying was the Dragon King? Brother Qin, let me ask you a question very seriously. Longchen looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Speak." Qin Feiyang looked at Longchen. If one day, something unimaginable really happens that requires you to abandon your past grudges and join forces with the dragons, are you willing? Longchen asked. Join forces with the dragons? Qin Feiyang frowned. Longchen looked at Qin Feiyang quietly. He didn't urge him, but there was some anticipation in his eyes. After a long time, Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at Longchen and laughed. I'm not willing to join forces, but if it threatens innocent creatures, I won't sit back and do nothing. Hearing this, Longchen's face immediately revealed a smile, and cupped his hands. Then let's part ways here. It seemed that he had waited for the answer he was waiting for. See you later. Qin Feiyang smiled. After sending off Longchen, he called the white-eyed wolf back and called Xiao Naughty out. Xiao Naughty observed the god-killing tablet for a moment, and said excitedly, "This is a quasi-dominator divine weapon that is about to evolve. Not bad, this trip to the heavy region is not in vain." Not only did he break the limit of his physical body, he also obtained a quasi-dominator divine weapon. Hearing this, the white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang were also extremely excited. Xiao Naughty explained again. Because it was about to evolve, the artifact's spirit had fallen into a deep sleep. No matter how they called, it would not wake up. Only after the god-killing tablet had successfully evolved would the artifact's spirit awaken on its own. Finally, Xiao Naughty brought the god-killing tablet into the land of Source. This was because absorbing the power of origin could accelerate the evolution of the god-slaying tablet. However, Little Wimp also left a difficult problem for Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Once the god-slaying tablet successfully evolved, how were they going to convince it to stay? Because if he couldn't convince the god-slaying tablet, then he would be making a wedding dress for the phoenix-robed woman. White-eyed wolf had a headache over this matter. Qin Feiyang had already given the god-slaying tablet to it. It was its responsibility to convince the god-slaying tablet. It had gone to great lengths to obtain a sovereign divine weapon, and it didn't want the phoenix-robed woman to benefit from it. But now, the artifact spirit had fallen into a deep slumber, and was unable to communicate with him in advance. Because if they could communicate now, they could make the artifact spirit swear a blood oath first. Once the blood oath was made, would the god-slaying tablet still dare to resist? What a worry! Qin Feiyang was silent for a moment. He looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "Longchen told me something just now." "What news?" White-eyed wolf was puzzled. Qin Feiyang said, "He said that besides the 4 forbidden lands, there are even more terrifying existences in the Sky Cloud realm. Even the Dragon King is afraid of them. Do you believe it?" "What the hell? How is that possible?" "He must be scaring you." White-eyed wolf shook its head. "I hope so." Qin Feiyang thought for a moment. He smiled and said, "Let's go to Sky Cloud Island." One man and one wolf left the Black Tortoise realm. They opened a space-time tunnel and descended on Sky Cloud Island. "Big brother, I brought you wine." Looking at the empty mountain peak, Qin Feiyang laughed loudly. Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, the little rabbit rushed out from the mountain below. Its eyes were shining as it stared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. He looked at the white-eyed wolf. "Me again?" The white-eyed wolf pouted and took out 1,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine. The little rabbit waved its paw and the 1,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine disappeared without a trace. It then sized up Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and chuckled. "Not bad, you broke through the limits of your corporeal body. You saw through it so quickly." Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Don't you know who Uncle Rabbit is? How can you hide from Uncle Rabbit's eyes?" The little rabbit smiled proudly. Yes, Big Brother is the best." Qin Feiyang gave a thumbs up and asked with a smile, "How are senior brother Fengzi and the others?" "Guess." The little rabbit smiled mysteriously. "How can I guess?" Qin Feiyang was helpless. Anyway, they are stronger than you. The little rabbit waved its paw and said. Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and asked in surprise. They also broke the limit of their physical body. No. The little rabbit shook its head. Then how strong can they be? White-Eyed Wolf sneered disdainfully. Then let's wait and see. The little rabbit chuckled. What about Yin Zhongtian? Qin Feiyang asked. Yin Zhongtian? The little rabbit was taken aback and asked suspiciously. Yin Zhongtian is with you. Why are you asking Uncle Rabbit? Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and frowned. He left the multiple regions a long time ago and I told him to come to Sky Cloud Island to look for you. Is there such a thing? I don't know, I didn't see him. The little rabbit shook its head. Didn't see him? Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other. What was going on? Could it be that Yin Zhongtian didn't come to Sky Cloud Island after leaving the multiple regions? That couldn't be right. Yin Zhongtian knew that coming to Sky Cloud Island could open the door to his potential, so why would he delay? Could something have happened? He quickly took out the Divine Sound Transmission Stone and found that Yin Zhongtian's contract bridge was still there. He immediately sent a message to Yin Zhongtian, but it was like a stone sinking into the sea. What is this old man doing? White-Eyed Wolf frowned. Something's not right. Qin Feiyang muttered. If Yin Zhongtian left the multiple regions, he would definitely come to Sky Cloud Island at the first opportunity. If Yin Zhongtian had an accident and unfortunately died, the contract bridge would also dissipate. But now, the contract bridge was still there. This meant that Yin Zhongtian was still alive. White-Eyed Wolf asked in surprise. Could he have met the dragons halfway? Dragons? Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank as he looked at the little rabbit and said, Big brother will be leaving first. After saying that, he looked at White-Eyed Wolf and said, Go to Sea Lion Island. White-Eyed Wolf opened a space tunnel, and the man and wolf rushed in like lightning. Inexplicable. The little rabbit looked at the back of the man and wolf and muttered before disappearing into the mountains below. Sea Lion Island. A few years had passed, and everything was the same. But sea lion's cultivation had improved a lot with the help of the time array. Brother Qin, Brother Wolf. Seeing the man and wolf appear, Sea Lion immediately greeted them warmly. How have you been? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Very good. Also, one day last year, Lord Sea Lion Emperor personally came to Sea Lion Island. Sea Lion chuckled. Why did the Sea Lion Emperor come? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. My lord told me to cultivate well. He's really taking good care of me. But I know that this is all thanks to you. Otherwise, why would Lord Sea Lion Emperor take a fancy to a small character like me? Sea Lion said. Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, Did the little princess of the dragons send me any messages in the past few years? No. Sea Lion shook his head. No. Qin Feiyang frowned. If Yin Zhongtian really fell into the hands of the dragons, whether it was out of good or bad intentions, the little princess of the dragons should have sent him a message to tell him. Qin Feiyang said, Give me the Divine Sound Stone. Sea Lion nodded and took out the Divine Sound Stone. Qin Feiyang grabbed the Divine Sound Stone and quickly woke up. Soon, the shadow of the little princess of the dragons appeared. You're out. It's a pity that I didn't die in the heavy domain. The little princess of the dragons giggled. That was because many people had seen Qin Feiyang and the others enter the heavy regions. Thus, after a long time, it was no longer a secret. This was also the reason why the little princess of the dragons didn't send a message to Qin Feiyang. Because in the heavy domain, there was no way to receive a message. Then I'm sorry, it didn't happen as you wished. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The little princess of the dragons joked. Then you must have escaped. You even know this? Qin Feiyang frowned. Do you still remember what I said to you back then? Even if you enter the various forbidden areas and find them, it may not be a good thing. You didn't listen, now you believe me. The little princess of the dragon's mouth was full of playfulness. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and asked, What is the relationship between the Feng people and you dragons? You can investigate this matter yourself. I can only tell you that the Feng people will not help you deal with the dragons. The little princess of the dragons said. Why? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. He had already contacted the phone people, and the phone people's attitude towards the dragons was not friendly, but why was the little princess of the dragons so sure? Wait. The phone people's attitude towards the dragons was indeed not very friendly, which made him think that the phone people could be an ally. But not long ago, when the fire phone people learned that he had the purple gold dragon blood, they immediately wanted to kill him. Could all of this have something to do with his purple gold dragon blood? In other words, although the relationship between the phone people and the dragons was not very good, but at the same time, the phone people also hated the purple gold dragon blood? The little princess of the dragons said. You can ask me these questions, but I can't give you an accurate answer, so you can slowly investigate it yourself. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and did not force her. Then let me ask you one thing. Is Yin Zhongtian in the hands of the dragons? Yin Zhongtian? I heard that he didn't go to the heavy domain with you. The little princess of the dragons was suspicious. Qin Feiyang's eyelids twitched. It seemed that the little princess of the dragons didn't know either, so he was too lazy to talk nonsense and directly turned off the sound transmission godstone, which made the little princess of the dragons quite angry. What kind of person was this? Little Qin Zi. Why do I feel that it's getting stranger and stranger? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Qin Feiyang's face was gloomy as he handed the sound transmission godstone to the sea lion and looked at the white-eyed wolf. Go to the southern continent immediately and ask He Zhongtian. Perhaps Yin Zhongtian had fallen into the hands of the other princes and princesses, and He Zhongtian had now gained the trust of these princes and princesses. If that was the case, then he must know the whereabouts of Yin Zhongtian. Southern continent. 7-star city. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf changed their appearances and entered the city. At that time, He Zhongtian's body was shattered and they did not establish a contract bridge, so they could only come to 7-star city and find a way to contact He Zhongtian. However, He Zhongtian was in the clan's land in the inner city, and the inner city was protected by a barrier, so it was difficult to sneak in. And after a few years, the princes and princesses of the dragons, as well as a large number of followers, must have already reconstructed their bodies and souls, so they couldn't directly barge in now. So one man and one wolf mingled in the various restaurants of 7-star city, and at noon 2 days later, they finally met a few young disciples of the He family. Qin Feiyang used a little trick to get these people to help pass the message to He Zhongtian. Of course, these people knew nothing about the identity of Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Chapter 3560. Guan Yilu. In a secluded pavilion. Greetings, young lord. He Zhongtian disguised himself as a middle-aged man, standing in front of Qin Feiyang and bowing. And Qin Feiyang nodded and pointed to the chair next to the tea table. Sit. He Zhongtian sat down and smiled. I heard that you went to the heavy regions. How was your harvest? Not bad. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile and did not waste any more words before he said. There is a question that I would like to ask you. Do you know the whereabouts of Yin Zhongtian? Yin Zhongtian? He Zhongtian was taken aback and asked suspiciously. Isn't he with you? Hearing this, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, their faces full of bewilderment. Obviously, He Zhongtian didn't know either. What was going on? Young lord, what are you doing? He Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Yin Zhongtian mysteriously disappeared. I thought he was captured by the dragons, but now it seems that it has nothing to do with the dragons. Mysteriously disappeared? He Zhongtian frowned. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf was startled and looked at Qin Feiyang urging. Little Qin Zi, quickly send me to the Black Tortoise world. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The white-eyed wolf said. When we entered the heavy regions, didn't Yin Zhongtian and I leave a wisp of soul in the ancient castle? Yes. Qin Feiyang slapped his head and hurriedly sent the white-eyed wolf to the Black Tortoise world. He had really forgotten about this matter. Because they didn't have such a habit before, it was easy for them to ignore it. Young lord, what's going on? He Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and gave a simple recount of what happened when Yin Zhongtian left the multiple regions. Feng people? Is this the legendary phoenix? He Zhongtian was shocked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. He Zhongtian said in disbelief. I didn't expect that there would be such a huge monster hidden in the heavy region. Dragons, Feng people. What kind of existence was hidden in the land of buried gods and the glacier of death? Little Qinzi. Very soon. The white-eyed wolf's voice rang out in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang summoned the white-eyed wolf and asked, how is it? I've asked the divine soul. He doesn't know where Yin Zhongtian is either. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. What? How could he not know? Qin Feiyang suddenly stood up. I asked him the same thing. But he told me that he hasn't been able to communicate with my true self since we entered this realm. And before he also tried to communicate with my true self, but he couldn't. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. What the hell is going on? Qin Feiyang clenched his fists. Could it be that Yin Zhongtian hadn't left the heavy region? But the phoenix-robed lady had clearly sent him out. Wait. Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly trembled as he muttered. Princess Huofeng. Could it be, young master? At this time, He Zhongtian frowned and looked at Qin Feiyang. There is one person that I think I need to tell you. Perhaps Yin Zhongtian's disappearance is related to this person. Qin Feiyang's train of thought was interrupted and he asked, who is it? Yin Zitao. He Zhongtian said. Yin Zitao. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, their faces full of suspicion. He Zhongtian was stunned for a moment, then patted his head and laughed. That's right, we should call him Yin Xiang now. Yin Xiang? You have news about him. The man and the wolf were both surprised. He Zhongtian nodded and said in a deep voice. It should be not long after you entered the heavy region. Yin Xiang suddenly appeared in the southern continent. His strength is unfathomable. Not only did he kill He Chengjian, but he also killed his way into our He family's territory. What? He's that strong? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. Of course, they knew Yin Xiang's strength. Back then, he was only at the imperishable realm. Although their cultivation had reached the perfect sovereign realm now, it was because they had opened the door of potential, and still had 1 day and 1,000 years of time array. Moreover, they had obtained all kinds of opportunities. For example, Qin Feiyang had obtained the inheritance of the law of destruction, and directly broke through a small realm. But what did Yin Xiang have? He was wandering alone outside, without a time array, without opening the door of potential. How could he grow to such a level in just a few years? Every word is true. Moreover, his cultivation has already reached the perfect sovereign realm. What's even more unbelievable is that he has comprehended the ultimate profundity of the law of space and time. He Zhongtian said each word with a pause. He was also shocked. Impossible. The white-eyed wolf shouted. He and Qin Feiyang had so many advantages, but they had only broken through to the perfect sovereign realm. However, Yin Xiang had already broken through to the perfect sovereign realm. Wasn't this a joke? I also don't want to believe it, but I saw it with my own eyes. Moreover, at that time, my body hadn't been reconstructed. If it wasn't for the blood dragon blade, I would have died in his hands. He Zhongtian said. The white-eyed wolf turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked, could it be that he was hiding his strength back then? That's the only explanation now. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. He didn't expect Yin Xiang to be such a powerful existence. The ultimate profundity of the law of space and perfect sovereign realm cultivation. This was already comparable to the big shots of the sky cloud realm. Yin Xiang is the son of Yin Guanghui, a descendant of the Yin family. Therefore, I'm thinking that Yin Zhongtian's disappearance might have something to do with him. He Zhongtian was suspicious. You mean that Yin Xiang took Yin Zhongtian away? The white-eyed wolf asked. We can't rule out this possibility. He Zhongtian nodded. The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Little Qinzi, quickly find Yin Guanghui, and see if you can contact Yin Xiang. This matter isn't clear yet. Let's not alarm Yin Guanghui and the others, lest they worry. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and took out the divine sound transmission stone. Buzz. Soon. A graceful figure appeared. It was Yueqing. Qin Dage. Yueqing looked at Qin Feiyang with joy. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Little Qing, there's something I want to ask you for help with. Yueqing still wanted to ask when Qin Feiyang came out of the heavy domain, so when she heard this, she couldn't help but look a little surprised and asked suspiciously. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang said. Help me contact Yin Xiang. Contact Big Brother Yin? Yueqing was taken aback. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and then said. Right away, I have an urgent matter. Okay. Yueqing nodded, and the shadow quickly dissipated. He Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. She seems to be the owner of Tianyue Building? You also know Tianyue Building? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Now Tianyue Building is spread all over the western and eastern continents, and has become a force that can't be ignored in the sky cloud realm. It's hard for me not to know. He Zhongtian smiled bitterly. It turned out that Tianyue Building was really related to Qin Feiyang. Wait a minute. The owner of Tianyue Building had broken off with Qin Feiyang in private. Then wouldn't the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and Devil Palace? As the patriarch of the He family, the Temple Master of Divine Hall was naturally not stupid. He instantly thought of something. All this time, Qin Feiyang had never told him that he was just putting on an act with the Demon Royal Halls and the Loose Cultivator Alliance. Originally, he thought that Qin Feiyang had truly fallen out with these two factions. But now, it seemed that this was not the case. As Qin Feiyang waited anxiously, Yueqing finally sent a message. How is it? Qin Feiyang asked. Yueqing shook her head and said, I'm sorry Qin Dage, I didn't contact Big Brother Yin. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Yueqing said, but back then, after you entered the heavy domain, Big Brother Yin came to find me to ask about you. He also asked me to contact you. There was such a thing? Qin Feiyang was taken aback and asked, why did he look for me? He didn't say. Then he left. I don't know where he went. Yueqing shook her head. Qin Feiyang frowned and said with a smile. All right, if you have any news about him, inform me immediately. Okay. Yueqing nodded. She wanted to ask a few more questions, but Qin Feiyang directly turned off the sound transmission divine stone, which made her very depressed. Inside the private room, He Zhongtian pondered for a moment, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I think Yin Xiang looked for you to inquire about Yin Zhongtian and the others. At that time, the news of the Yun family leaving the southern continent with you had already spread in the sky cloud world. The white-eyed wolf said, then I think Yin Zhongtian's disappearance must be related to him. It shouldn't be. Qin Feiyang shook his head thoughtfully. Why? He Zhongtian and the white-eyed wolf were puzzled. If Yin Zhongtian really ran into Yin Xiang, would they need to hide? After all, the Grim Reaper's sword, Yin Guanghui, Yin Zhongyue, and all the Yun family members are in the Black Tortoise world. Moreover, even if Yin Xiang had some misunderstanding about us, if he ran into Yin Zhongtian would definitely explain it to him, so there was no need to hide from us. I think this matter has little to do with Yin Xiang. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Then tell me what's going on. The white-eyed wolf frowned. Qin Feiyang pondered, a cold light flashing in his eyes as he said in a low voice, I'm afraid we have to ask Princess Huofeng about this matter. Because it was this woman who sent Yin Zhongtian out of the twin regions. You suspect that she's behind this? The white-eyed wolf was surprised. It better not be her, otherwise the Feng people won't let this matter go. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. The white-eyed wolf pondered for a moment, then said, in fact, we don't need to be so worried because Yin Zhongtian left his soul in the Black Tortoise world. Even if something happens, he won't really lose his life. No. He Zhongtian waved his hand. What? The white-eyed wolf looked at him suspiciously. Although Yin Zhongtian left his soul and won't really lose his life, if Yin Zhongtian's original body doesn't die, then the soul left in the Black Tortoise world won't be able to reconstruct a complete soul and body. In other words, as long as his original body is still alive, then we must find him. Yi Zhongtian said. What you mean is, only when Yin Zhongtian's original body dies, can the soul left behind reconstruct a complete soul and body, and come back from the dead? The white-eyed wolf asked. Yes. He Zhongtian nodded and smiled. If the split soul can reconstruct a complete soul and body, then wouldn't a person be able to create a large number of doppelgangers? The white-eyed wolf's brows furrowed tightly. It seemed that this matter was really a little troublesome. Chapter 3561. He Zhongtian continued. Furthermore, I think that if Yun Zhongtian really did encounter some mishap, then his current situation should be beyond his control. What do you mean? The white-eyed wolf looked at him in bewilderment. Yun Zhongtian and I have known each other since we were young, so I know him better than you. If he really did encounter some mishap, he would definitely abandon his main body, such as self-destructing his physical body. Anyway, there is still a soul in the black tortoise world, so it doesn't matter if he self-destructs, He Zhongtian said. That makes sense. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Let's hope that we are just worrying for nothing. Qin Feiyang sighed and looked at He Zhongtian. Are those princes and princesses still in your He family? No. After reconstructing their souls and physical bodies, they left when they learned that you went to the heavy regions. He Zhongtian said. Left. The man and wolf looked at each other and frowned. They wouldn't have gone to block the exit of the heavy regions, right? I don't know, they didn't say anything when they left. He Zhongtian said. Qin Feiyang asked. Then, is there any news about the dragon's crown prince? No. He Zhongtian shook his head. This person is really good at holding back, he still hasn't issued a challenge. The white-eyed wolf sneered. Right now, I don't have the mood to care about him. Let's find out Yun Zhongtian's whereabouts first. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at He Zhongtian. Take out the divine sound transmission stone and establish a contract bridge. It will be easier to communicate in the future. Okay. He Zhongtian took out the divine sound transmission stone. After establishing the contract bridge, Qin Feiyang prepared to let the white-eyed wolf open a space-time tunnel and leave. He Zhongtian hesitated and looked at Qin Feiyang. Young master, please wait. Qin Feiyang turned and looked at He Zhongtian suspiciously. There is something. He Zhongtian hesitated for a moment and sighed. It's about Yin Xiang. No, it's about Yin Xiang. Wait, Yin Zitao? Qin Feiyang only noticed this name now. He Zhongtian explained. Yin Xiang was originally called Yin Zitao, but it was changed at some point. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in understanding. Looking at the bashful He Zhongtian, he smiled and said, Just say what you want to say. Please take a seat. He Zhongtian pointed at the seat beside him. Qin Feiyang returned to his seat. White-eyed wolf was also lying on the chair beside him, looking at He Zhongtian curiously. This matter starts from a very long time ago. Back then, Yin Xiang had shown his prowess for the first time and displayed astonishing talent. He was even hailed as the #1 evildoer of the Yin family, and had the potential to surpass Yin Zhongtian. At that time, the Yin family carefully protected him. However, there is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Then one day, our He family found out about this. Then we planned. Speaking of this, He Zhongtian sighed, his face full of regret. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly. He asked, You plan to kill him in the cradle? Yes. He Zhongtian nodded and said, Under our meticulous planning, we finally succeeded in killing Yin Xiang. At that time, Yin Xiang's mother was also present. In order to protect Yin Xiang, she also died in our hands. Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf exchanged glances. So this was Yin Xiang's story. It was no wonder that Yun Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui wanted to kill He Zhongtian so badly back in the Milky Way. But I didn't expect that Yin Xiang actually didn't die. Moreover, he didn't let down the Yin family's expectations. At such a young age, he cultivated to the peak of the Dominator realm, and comprehended the most profound meaning of the space-time laws. He Zhongtian sighed. So now you're afraid? White-Eyed Wolf looked at him mockingly. Afraid? He Zhongtian smiled proudly and said, Even if he comprehended the most profound meaning, he can only dream of killing this old man. But the situation is different now. In the past, because our two families were at odds, no matter who it was, we would definitely think of ways to deal with the other. But now Yin Zhongtian and I are both working for the young master. If we continue to fight like this, it won't be good for anyone. Qin Feiyang said. But the fact that you killed Yun Guanghui's wife and son cannot be erased. Indeed. But now, the sword of the Grim Reaper has fallen into Yin Zhongtian's hands. He Qinggang, He Qingjian, He Qinggang's son, and the Yin family members who were stationed in Yunhan City all died at the hands of Yin Xiang. So no matter what, we should be even. He Zhongtian said. You can't settle the score like this. After all, you were the ones who attacked first. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Young master, I don't agree with this. Our two families have always been enemies. You schemed against me and I schemed against you. This is a common occurrence. So, there's really no way to trace back to the root cause and find out who attacked first. He Zhongtian waved his hand. Qin Feiyang heard this and felt that it made sense. If two people who didn't know each other had a grudge, it would definitely be possible to tell who was right and who was wrong. But the Yin family and the He family had already formed a grudge since the first generation of ancestors. Moreover, they were both fighting for their own power and ambition. So there was really no way to discuss who was right and who was wrong. Qin Feiyang said. Do you mean that you want me to help mediate between the two? Yes. He Zhongtian nodded and said with a smile. After all, both of our families are working for you now. If we were to fight, it would definitely be your loss. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, when we find Yun Xiang, I'll give it a try. But I'm not confident in this matter. It doesn't matter. If Yin Xiang really doesn't let go, then we'll just fight to the death. He Zhongtian snorted coldly. Old He, you're too early to say that. You just said that the sword of Thanatos is now in the hands of the Yun family. Moreover, the Yun family is now in the Black Tortoise world. What do you have to fight to the death with them? The white-eyed wolf chuckled. This? He Zhongtian's expression stiffened and he gritted his teeth. If it really comes to that, I'll borrow the hands of the dragons to deal with them. But don't misunderstand, I'm going to deal with the Yun family, not you. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf smiled at each other and said lightly, It hasn't come to that yet. Don't worry, we'll do our best to mediate. Thank you. He Zhongtian said gratefully. All right, then we'll leave first. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. The white-eyed wolf opened a space-time tunnel, and one man and one wolf descended on the Sea Lion Island. The sea lion came up and asked, Brother Qin, Boss Wolf, how was it? Nothing. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Don't worry, heaven helps the worthy. The sea lion comforted. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at the white-eyed wolf. Go to the two entrances of the heavy domain, and see if the dragon's prince and princess are blocking them. All right. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Qin Feiyang took out the horsetail whisk and said, Follow the white-eyed wolf and be careful. After the white-eyed wolf and the horsetail whisk left, Qin Feiyang looked at the sea lion and smiled. We didn't disturb you, did we? Why would I? I can't wait for you guys to stay here. That way, I can also bask in your glory. The sea lion chuckled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. All right, you continue to cultivate. I'll go back to work. After saying that, he entered the Black Tortoise world and landed in front of the ancient castle, directly entering the cultivation room. 2 days outside, 2,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. The phoenix-robed woman's soul floated in the cultivation room. She had already reconstructed many souls, but there were no signs of her awakening. Qin Feiyang observed for a while, then left the cultivation room and entered the tea garden. While drinking tea, he lowered his head and muttered, Young master? When did you come back? Not long after. The Pei brothers returned to the Devil's Land and saw Qin Feiyang sitting alone in the tea garden. They couldn't help but be stunned, then quickly flew over. I just came back 2 days ago. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Then why didn't you inform us? We could have come to welcome you. Pei Dason said. What's there to welcome? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled and praised. It's been hard on you all these years. No. The two hurriedly waved their hands. Sit. Qin Feiyang pointed to the stone bench next to him. We don't dare. The two hurriedly shook their heads, their faces full of fear. Qin Feiyang frowned. The brother and sister looked at each other and sat down with trepidation. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but want to laugh. He waved his hand and said, Don't be so nervous. Old Pei has followed me through life and death. No matter how many grudges there are, it's time to draw a line. Yes, yes, yes. The two nodded. Qin Feiyang poured 2 cups of tea and handed them to the two. Thank you. In short, the two were very uncomfortable. Qin Feiyang took a sip of tea, looked at the two and asked, "Let me ask you, do you hate me?" The two looked stunned. Qin Feiyang said, "I want to hear the truth." Yes. Pei Dason gritted his teeth and nodded. "How much do you hate?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. "I hate you to the bone. But this is the beginning of my hatred. At that time, you suppressed us in the soul-sealing valley and tortured us. You even killed my son in front of me. I really wanted to tear you into pieces. Later on, we submitted to you because we didn't have a choice. After all, you controlled our lives. However, as I got to know you better and got to know you better, especially after seeing how well you treated Lord Father, the hatred in my heart gradually decreased. Especially in the past few years, we have been managing the Black Tortoise world. We have seen the respect, love, and worship that every living being in the Black Tortoise world has for you. We have also learned about your growth and everything you have done. That's why I'm filled with admiration for you right now." Pei Dason said from the bottom of his heart. Qin Feiyang smiled. "Then it seems that you know me like the back of your hands." "Yes." The brother and sister nodded. "Yes. It's really not been easy on this road. And along the way, those who helped me, whether they're by my side now or not, whether they're humans or other living beings, I'm extremely grateful. Especially the Sword Emperor and the others. In order to protect the living beings in the ancient world, they sacrificed everything. So, I won't allow anyone to hurt them." Although Qin Feiyang's words were calm and carried a trace of emotion, the brother and sister could feel a sharp edge. Actually, as long as everyone gets along with each other sincerely, there's no grudge that can't be resolved. When Dan Wangkai returns, you can go find him. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "Thank you, young master." Hearing this, the two were overjoyed and quickly got up to thank him. Chapter 3562. There's no need to thank me, just focus on educating your next generation. I don't wish for a spoiled brat like Pei Wanli to appear in the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Yes. Both of them bowed respectfully. Off you go then. Qin Feiyang waved his hand dismissively. This subordinate will take his leave. Both of them turned around and left with joy in their hearts. Now they were filled with energy. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, and with a thought, a middle-aged man appeared in the tea garden. It was Yin Guanghui. And Yin Guanghui was caught off guard, but when he saw Qin Feiyang, a smile appeared on his face. "Brother Qin, you're back?" And Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. "Please have a seat." Yin Guanghui sat beside Qin Feiyang and looked around, asking, "Why don't I see the old ancestor and Wolf King? They still have some matters to deal with." Qin Feiyang smiled. Yin Guanghui nodded and didn't ask further. "Then did you find anything in the heavy region?" "Not bad." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he said, "I called you here mainly to ask about Yin Xiang's situation." "Xiang?" Yin Guanghui was stunned and quickly stood up, asking, "Do you have any news about him?" "Don't be so agitated. I did have news about Yin Xiang, but he's gone missing now." Qin Feiyang signaled Yin Guanghui to sit down. Yin Guanghui returned to his seat inside. "This child has a tough life. I've met He Zhongtian before and he told me about your grudges, but there are still many things I don't understand. Why hasn't Yin Xiang returned to the Yin family all these years? As his father, why can't you contact him?" Qin Feiyang asked as he poured a cup of tea for Yin Guanghui. Then he looked at Yin Guanghui silently. Yin Guanghui picked up the teacup and lowered his head to drink for a while. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and sighed. "I won't hide it from you. Back then, even the old ancestor and I thought that Xiang had died at the hands of the He family. Those years were the darkest period of my life. It's understandable for a middle-aged man to lose his wife and son." Qin Feiyang nodded. "But one night, I suddenly saw Ziyang. That was many years later. At that time, he had already comprehended the laws of space and time. Seeing him appear before me alive, and even comprehending an ultimate law, I feel like I'm dreaming. However, he didn't stay for long before leaving. Back then, his divine sound transmission stone was destroyed. At that time, when he left in such a hurry that I didn't have time to react and establish a new contract bridge with him. From then on, he never came back. Yin Guanghui shook his head. Qin Feiyang asked, "Then did he say where he was going?" I asked, but he didn't say. He only said that he was going to cultivate. Yin Guanghui said. Then why didn't he stay at home? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Because he felt that he was the one who caused the death of his mother. Therefore, he has always felt guilty and didn't dare to face everyone. At the same time, he also hated the He family. When he left, he swore that the entire He family would be buried with his mother. Although I didn't know where he was all these years, I could understand his pain, so I didn't look for him. Firstly, I didn't want him to feel guilty when he saw his clansmen. Secondly, I didn't want to disturb him. Yin Guanghui sighed. I see. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and said, since he comprehended the laws of space and time later, you should be the only one who knows about this. Then, why has there been a rumor all these years that the Yin family has a monster who comprehended an ultimate law? At first, I was the only one who knew about this. But later, I told the old ancestor Miss Yu and Zifeng. It was because Zifeng let it slip outside. However, he didn't say that this person was his elder brother Xiang. You also know that for an aristocratic family like ours, as long as there's a small matter, it will definitely immediately spread like wildfire. Because of this, I even taught this kid a lesson. And when the He family found out about this, they immediately launched a secret investigation. However, because we kept it a secret, the He family never found out that Xiang was still alive. They didn't know that the person who comprehended an ultimate law was Xiang. They just thought that another monster had been born in our Yin family. Yin Guanghui explained. I see. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Yin Guanghui. Just now, He Zhongtian asked me for a favor. What is it? Yin Guanghui frowned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, he asked me to help mediate the feud between your two families. That's impossible. Yin Guanghui shook his head decisively, his eyes full of hatred. I know you'll answer. But you can also imagine that the He family has paid a great price. You still don't know that Yin Xiang personally killed his way to the He family before we entered the heavy region. Qin Feiyang told him in detail about how Yin Xiang killed He Chengjian and the others. No way. Xiang has already comprehended the ultimate law of space-time? Yin Guanghui was shocked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. This kid is amazing. Yin Guanghui was amazed and his face was filled with pride. How could he not be proud to have such a promising son? He Qinggang, He Chengjian, He Qinggang's son, and many members of the He family. Their deaths can be considered as repaying this blood debt. Of course, I won't force you. This matter is still up to you to decide. Qin Feiyang smiled and said. Yin Guanghui pondered for a while and shook his head. Although the He family has indeed paid a price, I can't decide this matter. I have to ask Xiang. If he says let it be, I won't pursue this matter. He also understood. The He family also followed Qin Feiyang. If he didn't let it go, he would be putting Qin Feiyang in the middle, making it difficult for him on both sides. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, you don't have to feel pressured because if I have to choose between the He family and the Yun family, I will definitely choose the Yun family. Thank you. Yin Guanghui smiled gratefully. Qin Feiyang asked, then the members of the Yun family are still following the rules, right? Don't worry. Last time, there were a few clansmen who wanted to sneak out of the central province. I caught them and killed them on the spot. Since then, no one dared to go against me. Yin Guanghui said. Then, what about your two brothers? Qin Feiyang asked. Yin Guanghui said. I've already told them. So far, they haven't done anything out of line. That's good. Qin Feiyang nodded and said. In any case, you have to remember one thing. No matter who it is, I will only give them one chance. Understood. Yin Guanghui nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and said. Then go find Zhao Si and bring back some unparalleled divine brew for Miss Yu. Don't mention it. All these years, this great aunt has been waiting for you to come back every day. waiting for you to open your mouth and get some unparalleled divine brew and black tortoise divine brew. Yin Guanghui shook his head and smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said, "It's not good for a woman to drink. I've tried to persuade her, but you've seen how obsessed she is with wine. It's useless." Yin Guanghui said helplessly, "All right, then bring some back for her." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "All right." Yin Guanghui nodded and rose to the sky, disappearing at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years had passed in the black tortoise world, and 10 days had passed in the outside world. The white-eyed wolf finally returned and said, "They're really blocking the entrance." "Who are they?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Other than the dragons, the first prince and the little princess, everyone is here. And according to my observation, the second princess and the others have called new followers." The white-eyed wolf said, "Blocking the two entrances is indeed a good plan. But they didn't expect that Long Chen would directly take us out of the heavy domain." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "These people must be planning that since they couldn't directly leave the heavy domain, they would definitely pass through the exit. This way, they would be able to give them a fatal blow. If they know that their god's son helped us, I wonder what kind of expression they would show." The white-eyed wolf laughed evilly. "Don't worry about them. Let's go check on Princess Huofeng's situation. The Black Tortoise realm has been here for more than 10,000 years. It's time for her to wake up." A man and a wolf entered the ancient castle's cultivation room, and saw that the phoenix-robed woman's divine soul was almost half reconstructed. But seeing a man and a wolf enter, the phoenix-robed woman's divine soul didn't have any reaction. "What's the situation?" "Half of her divine soul has been reconstructed, but she still hasn't woken up?" The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows, walked forward, patted the divine soul and shouted, Hey, it's dawn. It's time to wake up." However, the divine soul still didn't respond. "Why do I feel that something is wrong?" The white-eyed wolf turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at the divine soul, his eyes flickering. Suddenly, he stepped forward and grabbed the phoenix-robed woman's divine soul. His eyes were full of killing intent, and he shouted, "If you don't speak, I will directly destroy your divine soul." "What?" As Qin Feiyang's voice fell, a weak whisper came from the divine soul. "Awake?" The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Qin Feiyang let go of the divine soul, but he couldn't help but frown. The white-eyed wolf didn't wake her up when he shouted, but now she woke up immediately after he threatened her. What a coincidence! The divine soul surged. In a short while, it transformed into a fiery phoenix the size of a palm. That was the Princess Huofeng's divine soul. Princess Huofeng slowly opened her eyes, glanced around and said in confusion, "Where is this?" "Hell." The white-eyed wolf smiled playfully. "What? Hell?" Princess Huofeng immediately quivered and shouted in panic, "No, I'm still so young. I don't want to die. Let me go back." The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Did she really believe it? How could she be so stupid? Qin Feiyang looked at Princess Huofeng, frowning more and more. He said in a low voice, "Don't pretend. In fact, you've been awake for a long time." "What do you mean? Isn't this hell?" Princess Huofeng looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously, as if she was avoiding Qin Feiyang's eyes. Chapter 3563. Qin Feiyang looked at the divine soul and said impatiently, "Don't change the topic." "I'm not changing the topic. I remember that when the Ice Phoenix sword fought with the Death God's sword, I was instantly killed by the Ice Phoenix sword. This should be hell." "But why are you in hell? Could it be that after I died, you also died in Bing Rining's hands?" Princess Huofeng was surprised. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead and said angrily, "This is not hell, and we're not dead. We're in my divine spatial artifact." "Not dead. Divine spatial artifact." Princess Huofeng glanced around the cultivation room and muttered, "This divine spatial artifact is too small." "That's not the point." Qin Feiyang completely lost his patience and said in a deep voice, "Let me ask you, where did you send Yun Zhongtian?" "Yun Zhongtian?" Princess Huofeng was stunned, lowered her head and pondered for a moment before looking at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. I sent him out of the heavy region, don't you know this? Is it the western continent's exit or the southern continent's exit? Qin Feiyang asked. One forbidden area, two exits. Princess Huofeng said, the western continent's exit. Are you sure? Qin Feiyang frowned. He felt that Princess Huofeng was acting a little guilty, as if she was hiding something. I'm sure. Princess Huofeng nodded. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he looked at the white-eyed wolf and said indifferently, strip her of her karma law and devour law. Ha! The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. Why did he suddenly want to strip her of her law force? What do you mean? Princess Huofeng also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang ignored her. He looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, I told you to do it, so do it. All right. The white-eyed wolf nodded and grabbed Princess Huofeng's soul. He turned around and left the training room, walking out of the castle. So this is his spatial divine object. It's so big. Looking at the vast and boundless devil's land, Princess Huofeng's heart was suddenly filled with shock. Boom. Before she could come back to her senses, a terrifying aura erupted. She hurriedly turned her head to look, and saw that behind the white-eyed wolf, there was a huge golden beast shadow. Looking at this beast phantom, a sense of fear that couldn't be dispelled emerged in her heart. She felt that the power of laws was no longer under her control. The white-eyed wolf's innate superpower can take away one's fighting soul, cultivation, and the power of law, and it will be taken away forever. In other words, once the white-eyed wolf takes them away, you'll lose the law of causality and the law of devour forever. Qin Feiyang explained. This, Princess Huofeng was stunned. Moreover, the white-eyed wolf can also integrate the power of law that it has taken away. Do you still remember the old man beside Bing Rinning who grasped the law of destruction? His law of destruction has already been integrated by the white-eyed wolf. You can take a look at the white-eyed wolf's cultivation. It has already stepped into the perfected dominator realm. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Princess Huofeng stared at the white-eyed wolf. Its cultivation had indeed broken through to the perfected dominator realm. She remembered that when they were in the central region, this wolf cub's cultivation was only at the perfected dominator realm. Qin Feiyang said, White-eyed wolf, show her all your supreme profundities. Although it didn't know what Qin Feiyang was going to do, the white-eyed wolf still did as he was told. Boom. The supreme profundities of the law of causality, law of destruction, law of death, and law of spacetime were all activated in an instant. It can't be. Princess Huofeng was dumbfounded. The supreme profundities of the four supreme profundities? The next moment, the white-eyed wolf also activated momentary time, instantly leaving the devil's land and returning to the devil's land in an instant. The supreme profundities of the five supreme profundities. Princess Huofeng was completely stunned. No one would believe that the white-eyed wolf had comprehended the five supreme profundities with its own ability. What was the white-eyed wolf's cultivation level? How could it have done it? Not to mention the supreme profundities, even the five supreme profundities couldn't all be supreme profundities. Because even the Feng people didn't have anyone who could comprehend all five supreme profundities. Therefore, it could be seen that what Qin Feiyang said was true. This wolf cub's innate ability could strip away and integrate the profundities. I've told you so much because I want you to understand one thing. As long as you fall into my hands, I have 10,000 ways to make your life worse than death. So, I'll give you one last chance. Where did you send Yin Zhongtian? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. When the white-eyed wolf heard this, it looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Could it be that Yin Zhongtian's disappearance had something to do with this woman? In other words, Qin Feiyang asked it to activate the five supreme profundities in order to intimidate this woman. Princess Huofeng said with a slight panic. I really sent him to the exit of the western land. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light as he looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, Begin. Okay. The white-eyed wolf grinned and activated its innate ability. Princess Huofeng immediately felt the karma law and the devouring law leave her body uncontrollably. No, Princess Huofeng screamed in horror. But Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear, his face cold. Needless to say, the white-eyed wolf. He did not take Princess Huofeng's pleas to heart at all. I'll talk. Princess Huofeng was about to cry. How did she offend these two malefactors? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he waved his hand saying stop. The white-eyed wolf stopped and looked at Princess Huofeng, its brows furrowed. Was this woman really behind all this? Qin Feiyang looked at Princess Huofeng and said calmly, speak. Princess Huofeng lowered her head, her expression uneasy. Speak. Qin Feiyang roared angrily. Princess Huofeng trembled and looked up at Qin Feiyang saying, then promise me that you won't be angry after you hear it. Qin Feiyang was immediately amused. She was still trying to negotiate terms with him? The white-eyed wolf could not help but want to laugh as well, saying, speak, we won't be angry. Princess Huofeng then said, I want Qin Feiyang's answer. The white-eyed wolf's face darkened. My answer, is it not useful? Are you looking down on me? All right, I won't be angry. Qin Feiyang nodded. Princess Huofeng heaved a sigh of relief when she heard that and lowered her head, saying, actually, I did not send Yin Zhongtian out of the twin regions. What? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's eyes immediately narrowed. Princess Huofeng panicked and quickly said, you said you won't be angry. A man must keep his word. Qin Feiyang suppressed his anger and asked in a low voice, then where did you send him? Phoenix's. Phoenix's nest. Princess Huofeng stammered and finally said it through gritted teeth and closed her eyes, feeling extremely nervous. Phoenix's nest. The man and wolf were both stunned. Sending Yin Zhongtian to the phoenix's nest? Isn't that sending a lamb to the tiger's den? Damned woman. I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. I was worried that you would go back on your word and not return the god-slaying tablet to me, and that was why I held back. I did not mean to hurt Yin Zhongtian. Princess Huofeng said in a fluster, not daring to open her eyes to look at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf glared fiercely at Princess Huofeng and transmitted his voice. Little Qinzi, what do we do? What else can we do? We must go to the phoenix's nest and rescue him. Qin Feiyang's hands were clenched tightly together as he said in self-reproach, I should have gone with that woman back then. The white-eyed wolf sighed and said, if you had gone with her back then, you would be in the same state as Yin Zhongtian now, trapped in the phoenix's nest. You might even have become a ghost under their blades. After all, the divine artifact was activated by that woman, and who knows where it would send you? But Qin Feiyang still wanted to say something. The white-eyed wolf said in his heart, I know you are blaming yourself in your heart, but it is useless to blame yourself now. Moreover, with that woman in our hands, they would not dare to harm Yin Zhongtian. What I am worried about now is that they will torture Yin Zhongtian. Just as He Zhongtian had predicted, Yin Zhongtian had fallen into a situation where he had no choice. In the phoenix's nest, even if Yin Zhongtian wanted to self-destruct, he would not be able to do it. The man and wolf were transmitting their voices in secret, and it was deathly still all around them. Princess Huofeng carefully opened her eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf apprehensively. Although the man and wolf had not made a move to kill her, her heart was still unbearably nervous. Then should we kill this woman or not? The white-eyed wolf asked through his voice transmission. We definitely cannot kill her now. She is the bargaining chip in our hands. Moreover, only she is able to activate the divine artifact and bring us directly into the core region of the gravity regions. Qin Feiyang said to himself. The white-eyed wolf arched up an eyebrow and raised his head to look at Princess Huofeng. Seeing that, Princess Huofeng quickly closed her eyes again, putting on a pitiful look. Don't act pitiful. If not for the fact that we still need your help, just based on what you have done, it would be enough for you to die without an intact corpse. The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and with a wave of his hand, the two men and one wolf immediately descended upon the soul-sealing valley. What is that smell? Why is it so smelly? Princess Huofeng opened her eyes in surprise, and when she saw the giant cesspool below, her face suddenly turned pale. Do you want to go down and take a bath? Qin Feiyang asked. Princess Huofeng shook her head like a rattledrum. She didn't want to even if she was beaten to death. Qin Feiyang said, but I really want you to go down and take a bath. Big brother, don't. You are my biological big brother, let's talk things over. When Princess Huofeng heard that, she was instantly terrified. Haha. I don't have a biological sister like you. Moreover, I am not worthy of you. Qin Feiyang grabbed Princess Huofeng's soul and threw it down. Don't. I can take you to Yin Zhongtian. Princess Huofeng's face turned pale as she shouted. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, Not enough. I want you to swear a blood oath to be loyal to me forever. Originally, he had not intended to fall out with them. After all, he had a favor to ask of the phone people. But looking at it now, it was completely unnecessary. Forever loyal? Princess Huofeng was stunned and said angrily, You're not willing? Qin Feiyang smiled sinisterly and stepped out, landing on top of the cesspool. The stench was pungent and nauseating. I'm willing. Princess Huofeng shouted again and again. Although she was a fire phoenix, she was still a woman. How could a woman endure such an environment? Chapter 3564. When Qin Feiyang heard this, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and he brought the dragons and the white-eyed wolf back to the devil's land. Why don't you make her swear? The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, A blood oath needs blood essence as a guide. Her body hasn't been rebuilt yet, so she can't swear. Then what if she goes back on her words after she reconstructs her body? The white-eyed wolf frowned. This is not the heavy region. How dare she go back on her words? Besides, even if she can't make a blood oath now, it doesn't mean I can't control her. Qin Feiyang formed a seal with both hands, and an enslavement seal appeared. What do you want to do now? Princess Huofeng looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. I'll control you first. Wait until you reconstruct your body, then make a blood oath. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. The enslavement seal is used to control the soul. So even if Princess Huofeng hasn't reconstructed her body, it doesn't matter. Is it necessary to do this? Princess Huofeng said angrily. Of course it's necessary. For you, I have to have double insurance. Don't resist, or I guarantee you will go to the soul-sealing valley and soak in it for tens of thousands of years. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly, and the enslavement seal instantly sank into Princess Huofeng's soul. Princess Huofeng wanted to resist several times, but when she thought of the terrifying scene in the soul-sealing valley, she couldn't help but feel her scalp tingle. In the end, she accepted the control of the enslavement seal. Now hurry up and reconstruct your soul and body, then take us to the phoenix nest. You'd better pray that Yin Zhongtian is fine, otherwise I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Yin Zhongtian will definitely be fine, because I handed him over to my followers. These followers will only listen to my orders. Before I left, I told them to take good care of Yin Zhongtian. Princess Huofeng said. It better be, Qin Feiyang said lightly. However, if you want to go to the phoenix nest, you will need a space-time teleportation divine artifact. But my space-time teleportation divine artifact has already been shattered in the battle between the Ice Phoenix sword and the Death God's sword. Princess Huofeng was in a difficult position. Qin Feiyang replied, You don't have to worry about that. I have plenty of space-time teleportation divine artifacts here. Is that so? All right then. Princess Huofeng nodded. In fact, it was not hard to imagine. How could a person like Qin Feiyang not have a space-time transmission divine artifact? The next day, at the exit of the heavy domain in the western continent, boom, a space-time tunnel appeared. 6 figures strode out of the space-time tunnel, exuding a murderous aura. Among these 6 people, there were men and women, old and young. They were led by a man and a woman. The woman was wearing a long white dress. Her long hair was like ice, dancing in the wind. She was Bing Running. The man beside her was also a young man about the same age as Bing Running. He was about 1.8 meters tall and wore a long red robe. His long red hair fluttered like flames. Among the 4 people behind them, 2 of them were familiar. They were the middle-aged man and the old man in white who had intercepted Qin Feiyang in the inner region. The 2 people behind the young man were 2 middle-aged women. They were also wearing fiery red dresses and had fiery red hair. This is the outside world? The young man glanced at the land in front of him and murmured. Bing Runing looked at the young man and asked, Brother Zihui, you haven't come out either? No. The young man shook his head. His eyes flashed coldly as he said lightly, I don't care. My mission is to find Qin Feiyang and save my sister. Bing Runing's eyes flashed slightly. She took out the divine voice stone. Who are they? I feel that their auras are very strong. Below, many creatures were cultivating in the mountains. At this moment, they were looking at Bing Runing and the others suspiciously. Among the crowd, there were 4 ordinary-looking young men and women. Their gazes were different. Bing Runing, pyrotechnic glow. Why did they come out from the phoenix nest? Could it be that Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf offended them in the heavy region? The 4 of them were suspicious. Don't make a fuss. Let's observe the situation first. One of the women said. Buzz. A short while later, the divine voice stone in Bing Runing's hand reacted. The image of a white-haired old woman appeared. Bing Runing asked, How's the information I asked you to find out? I have a basic understanding. The white-haired old woman nodded. Very good. Tell me the coordinates. We'll meet up with you immediately. Bing Runing said. I'm in the eastern continent's Cloudsea city. The white-haired old woman gave Bing Runing the coordinates. Bing Runing and the others immediately opened a space-time tunnel and rushed to the eastern continent. After the group disappeared, the 4 young men and women looked at each other. The confusion in their eyes grew stronger. The 4 of them were the second princess and the others from the dragons. The second princess was still the same as before. She was wearing a long black dress, and there was a trace of coldness in her expression. The second one was the white-haired young man, and the red-haired young man. The white-haired young man was the third prince. He had the white dragon sword. Qin Feiyang had stolen the law of destruction from him. The red-haired young man was the fourth prince. He had the blood dragon blade. The last one was the green-haired woman who had gone to rescue the red-haired young man. She was ranked 5th among the princes and princesses of the dragons. She was also known as the 5th princess. Other than the first prince and the little princess, the other 8 princes and princesses were blocking the 2 entrances. The second princess and the other 3 were blocking the entrance of the western continent. The other 4 were blocking the entrance of the southern continent. As the princes and princesses of the dragons, they naturally knew about the Feng people. That was why they recognized Bing Runing and the others at a glance. However, they couldn't figure out why the Feng people had come out. Was it because of Qin Feiyang? But Qin Feiyang hadn't come out from the heavy region. Qin Feiyang, I pyrotechnic glow, will be waiting for your battle in Ocean of Cloud City. 3 days later, Eastern Continent. A loud voice resounded in the sky above Ocean of Cloud City, and it shocked everyone. Pyrotechnic glow? Who's he? He actually dares to challenge Qin Feiyang. It was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The people of Ocean of Cloud City ran out and looked up into the sky. They saw a young man in a fiery robe standing in the sky. His aura shook the world. It can't be. He challenged Qin Feiyang? The Demon Palace. Elder Hua and the Demon Palace's Hall Master were called over by Chu Yun. When they heard her report, their faces were filled with surprise and bewilderment. It's absolutely true. I've already investigated it. Besides pyrotechnic glow, there are a few other people I've never seen before. Moreover, I can sense a dangerous aura from them. Chu Yun nodded. You didn't find out where they came from? Elder Hua asked. No. It's like they just appeared out of thin air. Chu Yun shook her head. The Demon Palace's Hall Master sighed. It's definitely that kid Qin Feiyang. Elder Hua and Chu Yun couldn't help but laugh bitterly when they heard this. Why is that kid so fond of causing trouble? The dragons haven't been dealt with, yet another mysterious power has appeared. Wait. I heard that Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and Yin Zhongtian have gone to the heavy region. Could it be that they're from the heavy region? Elder Hua suddenly spoke with surprise and bewilderment. Chu Yun was stunned, and then she frowned. There's a mysterious power hidden in the heavy region as well. Don't make wild guesses. Since they've come to look for Qin Feiyang, It means that Qin Feiyang has left the heavy region. Elder Hua, send a message to Qin Feiyang and ask him what's going on. The Demon Palace's hall master gazed at Elder Hua as he spoke. Elder Hua nodded and withdrew a transmission stone, the Black Tortoise dimension. Princess Huafeng was rebuilding her body and soul in the cultivation room. Qin Feiyang sat at the side and comprehended the profundities of the laws of strength. As for the white-eyed wolf, since it didn't need to cultivate, it would definitely go and fool around with others. Suddenly, the transmission stone resounded. Qin Feiyang withdrew it, lowered his head to take a look, and then a trace of a smile instantly appeared on his face. As the transmission stone awakened, Elder Hua and the others appeared. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "The three of you, long time no see. How have you been? You're still in the mood to smile? Tell me the truth. Did you get into trouble?" Chu Yun's face darkened as she spoke. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He thought that she'd come to show concern for him, but it turned out that she'd come to denounce him. Chu Yun spoke angrily. "A member of the pyrotechnic glow publicly issued a challenge to you in Ocean of Cloud City. Do you dare say that it has nothing to do with you?" The pyrotechnic glow? Issued a challenge? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Who was he? He had never heard of him before. Princess Huafeng, who was next to him, said, "The pyrotechnic glow is my twin brother." Twin brother? Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Yes. He should be here to save me." Princess Huafeng nodded. Elder Hua looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, "Is there someone else beside you?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang turned the transmission stone in his hand, and Princess Huafeng's divine soul immediately appeared in their line of sight. Fire Phoenix? The three of them were shocked. Yes. The mysterious force hidden in the core area of the heavy region is the Divine Phoenix clan. The one in front of you has a great background. She's the first princess of the Fire Phoenix clan. Qin Feiyang smiled. The three of them looked at each other. They finally understood why the pyrotechnic glow challenged Qin Feiyang in public. It turned out that Qin Feiyang had kidnapped someone else's first princess. Even a princess of a small empire would not let it go, let alone a giant like the Feng people. "Can't you stop for a while? We haven't dealt with the dragons yet, and you've provoked the Feng people. Do you want to provoke all the mysterious forces in the four forbidden areas?" Chu Yun said angrily. "Sister, do you think I want to do that? I went to find them to form an alliance, but I met a vicious woman. I had no choice but to do this. Let's talk about it later. Shouldn't you care about what we experienced in the heavy region first? How did we escape from the heavy region?" Qin Feiyang looked helpless. If he had a choice, he would do that. "Don't call me sister. I'm not familiar with you." Chu Yun snorted. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Elder Hua looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "What are you going to do now?" "He wants to challenge. Let him do it." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He was not interested in such a challenge at all. Besides, pyrotechnic glow was just a bait to lure him out. Once he really went to the Cloud Sea City, he would be doomed. Chapter 3565. Hearing Qin Feiyang's answer, the three of them were speechless. Facing the challenge of the Feng people, he could still be so calm. They really admired this kid's mentality, because if it was someone else, they would have panicked and asked for help. "Then tell me, what happened to you in the heavy domain?" Elder Hua asked. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. Then he recounted everything in detail. As the overlords of the Eastern continent, the three of them were quite knowledgeable. But when they heard this, they couldn't help but be frightened. Who would have thought that the gravity in the heavy domain would be so terrifying? Who would have thought that Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf could escape in such a situation? Chu Yun asked, "So this Princess Huafeng is now under your control?" "Yes. It's already merciful that I didn't kill her." Qin Feiyang nodded. "That's good." Chu Yun heaved a sigh of relief. She was afraid that Princess Huafeng would tell the dragons about the relationship between the Demon Palace and Qin Feiyang. At that time, the Demon Palace wouldn't be able to withstand the wrath of the dragons. Elder Hua said, Since Yin Zhongtian left his divine soul in the Black Tortoise realm, you don't have to worry too much. Deal with the matter at hand. I know. Qin Feiyang smiled. Also, after all, she is the princess of the phone people. There are some misunderstandings between the two of you, so don't torture her. In short, leave yourself a way out. Elder Hua's relationship with Qin Feiyang was like caring for his own son and grandson. This was something that everyone could feel. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Alright, we all know your ability. You can deal with it yourself. In addition, there are a few other people besides Pyrotechnic Glow. After Elder Hua finished speaking, he looked at Chu Yun. Chu Yun waved her hand, and the figures of Bing Running and the others appeared. When Qin Feiyang saw Bing Running, a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He sneered and said, "What a big lineup. Be careful." Elder Hua reminded Chu Yun before asking her to turn off the voice transmission divine stone. The Demon Hall's Hall Master looked at Chu Yun and smiled. I'll have to trouble you to pay attention to the movements of the phone people and the dragons at all times. I knew that these troublesome matters would definitely be thrown to me again. Chu Yun pursed her lips. You're young. Elder Hua chuckled. When Chu Yun heard this, she could not help but roll her eyes. Black Tortoise World. Qin Feiyang put away the divine sound transmission stone, lowered his head and muttered to himself for a while. He looked at Princess Huafeng and said with a smile, Say, if I capture your twin brother, will your father be even more cautious? Don't. If there's anything, we can discuss it. Princess Huafeng hurriedly pleaded for leniency. It seemed that she still cared about this younger brother of hers. Discuss. Why didn't I see you discussing it when you were scheming against me? Qin Feiyang sneered. Princess Huafeng said with grievance. This is also because you snatched my god-slaying tablet first. Qin Feiyang looked at her indifferently and asked, About this god-slaying tablet, why did you hide it in the central region? It's because of Bing Running. She's always thinking about the god-slaying tablet. If I don't think of a way, there will be trouble at any time. So when the god-slaying tablet evolved, I hid it in the central region. There's another reason. The god-slaying tablet was born in the region of gravity. It can absorb gravity and accelerate its evolution. Princess Huafeng said. Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Then why didn't you hide it in the inner region? Princess Huafeng said. You know the situation in the inner region. A large number of people come and go every day. What if they find it? So you hid it in the central region because your people usually don't go there? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. Also, there are very few humans in the central region. Even if there are humans and they discover the god-slaying tablet, I can easily kill them under the pressure of gravity. But I didn't expect to meet a jinx like you. Princess Huafeng was also angry. This is called man proposes, God disposes. If I were you, I would definitely send people to guard the god-slaying tablet at all times. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. I admit that I was careless and overconfident. But don't always use this to mock me. Will mocking me give you a sense of superiority? Princess Huafeng said angrily. A sense of superiority doesn't exist. But your heart is really big. You actually left a quasi-ruler divine weapon in the central region. Qin Feiyang laughed. You. Princess Huafeng glared at Qin Feiyang. Forget it. Hurry up and reconstruct your divine soul and body. I have to think about how to kill Bing Running. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and muttered. Since Bing Running came to the eastern continent, she must be planning something. Kill her. If you can really kill her, I will thank your ancestors. Princess Huafeng snorted coldly. Don't scold me. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. To be honest, I'm not scolding you. I'm really grateful. But this time, Bing Running came prepared. Do you think she will give you a chance? If I'm not wrong, Bing Running must have the Ice Phoenix Sword, Black Ice Divine Bow, and Black Ice Divine Hammer with her. Plus, my brother must also have a Ruler Divine Weapon. You think you can defeat them with these 3 Ruler Divine Weapons? Princess Huafeng smiled disdainfully. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at First Princess Fire Phoenix in silence. What are you planning? Princess Huafeng was a little flustered. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Since pyrotechnic glow is your brother, he is our ally. You want to join forces with my brother to get rid of Bing Running? Princess Huofeng was surprised. Don't you want to? Qin Feiyang chuckled. Princess Huofeng hesitated. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, Bing Running already tried to kill you. Why are you still hesitating? You don't know. Although we fire phoenixes and ice phoenixes are not on good terms, we are still part of the Divine Phoenix clan. If Zihui helps, I'm afraid it will provoke a war between the fire phoenixes and ice phoenixes. Princess Huofeng sighed. But Bing Running tried to kill you first. Qin Feiyang said. Princess Huofeng said, although you are right, if our two clans really go to war, there will be a lot of casualties. I can't bear to see my clansmen die for me. I didn't expect you to be so kind. Qin Feiyang was very surprised. You think I am you? Cold-blooded, heartless, and despicable. Princess Huofeng snorted through her nose. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. He really didn't understand why this woman had the face to call him cold-blooded, heartless, and despicable. Anyway, I don't want to see the ice phoenixes and fire phoenixes fight. I'm not afraid to tell you that even if I go back and tell my father that Bing Running tried to kill me, he will at most go to the Ice Phoenix clan's patriarch to reason with her. And the Ice Phoenix clan's patriarch will at most ask Bing Running to apologize. Because my father doesn't want to see the two clans fight. Besides, we still have to guard against the dragons. If our two clans fight in the end, both sides will suffer, and the Divine Phoenix clan's strength will drop greatly. Then the dragons will benefit. Princess Huofeng said. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, then what is the relationship between the Feng people and the dragons? A relationship that will never interact with each other. Princess Huofeng said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he asked, then what is the relationship between the Feng people and the purple gold divine dragon? When your father found out that I had the purple gold dragon blood, he immediately had a strong murderous intent. There must be a reason for this. I already said this before. I don't know. Princess Huofeng was a little impatient. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled faintly. Actually, we can find your brother and work together to get rid of Bing Running. As long as we do it cleanly, the Ice Phoenix clan won't find out that it was you and your brother. This? Princess Huofeng hesitated. Wasn't this what Bing Running planned when she attacked you? If she can do this, why can't you? Qin Feiyang urged. But are you confident that you can deal with the Ice Phoenix sword and other sovereign divine weapons? As long as we can subdue these sovereign divine weapons, we can do it without anyone knowing. The patriarch of the Ice Phoenix clan doesn't care about the big picture like my father. If he knows that we work together with a human to kill his daughter, it will definitely cause a storm of blood. Princess Huofeng said worriedly. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated and shook his head. I can't guarantee anything now. I can only say that I will try my best. After all, it was a sovereign divine weapon. How could it be subdued so easily? Princess Huofeng fell silent. There's no rush. You can think about it slowly. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. From this conversation, he had a new understanding of the two patriarchs of the Feng people. The patriarch of the Fire Phoenix clan was more benevolent and cared about the big picture. The patriarch of the Ice Phoenix clan was more selfish, violent, and reckless. It seemed that the patriarch of the Fire Phoenix clan was a good breakthrough point. But before that, there was one more thing to investigate. Why did the Feng people dislike the purple gold dragon blood so much? Looking back at the dragon's attitude toward the purple gold dragon blood, it was similar to the Feng people. As expected, there was definitely a secret that no one knew about. In the blink of an eye, outside, two people passed by. Almost every 10 days, pyrotechnic glow would come out and challenge Qin Feiyang. Even the southern, northern, and western continents knew about it. They were all discussing the background of this pyrotechnic glow, because Qin Feiyang's strength was obvious to all. Without strength and confidence, who would dare to challenge him so unscrupulously? But in this regard, Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. 2 months in the outside world was 60,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. Princess Huofeng's divine soul and physical body had been reconstructed. But Qin Feiyang still hadn't come out of seclusion. This was because he had comprehended the fifth profundity of the law of force to a critical point. He had been yearning for the sovereign realm for a long time. Of course, he wouldn't be distracted by something unimportant. Qin Feiyang, 10 days from now, let's fight to the death on White Crane Island. Don't make me wait too long. This morning, another loud voice resounded in the sky of the eastern continent. A golden-haired young man stood proudly at the top of the sky like a god. His aura shook the heavens and the earth. Chapter 3566. As soon as the golden-haired youth issued the challenge, the atmosphere of the sky cloud realm instantly boiled to a critical point. More and more discussions followed. Who was this person? Why did he also want to challenge Qin Feiyang? Was he the same type of person as Hua Zihui? What was going on recently? One after another, people ran out to challenge Qin Feiyang. They couldn't figure it out. Black Tortoise Realm. Qin Feiyang also quickly received the news. But he ignored it and continued to cultivate in seclusion. Others didn't know, but he knew in his heart that this person was the Crown Prince of the Dragons. He was looking forward to the battle with the Crown Prince of the Dragons, but he didn't lose his mind because of it. One must know. A shrewd person like the Crown Prince of the Dragons wouldn't fight a battle that he wasn't confident in. In other words, since the Crown Prince of the Dragons issued the challenge, he must be fully prepared and determined to win. But Qin Feiyang wasn't ready yet. Not to mention other things, his cultivation must at least break through to the sovereign realm. In short, if he didn't break through, he would never accept the challenge. As for the ridicule of others, he wouldn't care. Besides, why did the Crown Prince of the Dragons have the final say in the battle? Time passed quietly. Early in the morning, White Crane Island. The wind and clouds surged, and the sky was dark. Crack. Boom. Not long after, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, and it began to rain heavily. White Crane Island had long ceased to exist, but at this moment, a sea of people gathered in the surrounding sea. The sea beasts in this area had long evacuated. There was a lot of discussion at the scene, and it was extremely noisy. Do you think Qin Feiyang will come to fight? He should. After all, for him, there is nothing in this world that he doesn't dare to do. I'm curious, who are the two people who challenged him? They are so bold. Swish! Suddenly, 7 figures descended in the sky above the sea, and their aura was not concealed at all. It was Bing Running and Pyrotechnic Glow's group. It's him. He was the one who challenged Qin Feiyang first. Everyone immediately looked at Pyrotechnic Glow, their eyes filled with surprise. His temperament was extraordinary. The aura he exuded was also very strong. He's a perfect ruler. So you are a peak dominator. No wonder you have the courage to challenge Qin Feiyang. I remember the last time Qin Feiyang appeared, he was a high-level sovereign. I wonder if his cultivation has improved after all these years. But I feel that regardless of whether Qin Feiyang's cultivation has improved or not, this person is no match for him. I think so too. After all, Qin Feiyang is a legend, the #1 person in our sky cloud realm. People began to discuss in low voices. Myth. The first? He's not worthy. Bing Running's eyes flashed coldly when she heard these discussions. Not bad. What qualifications does a mere human have to become the #1 person in the sky cloud realm? Accompanied by a cold voice, the second princess of the dragons and the others landed in the sky above the sea and stood in the air with Bing Running and the others. It's them. Aren't they the ones who attacked the demon palace and made the 3 giants of the demon palace afraid? I heard that they have many sovereign divine weapons. Everyone stared at the second princess of the dragons and the others with fear on their faces. They didn't expect these terrifying existences to come to White Crane Island. But thinking about it, it made sense. Back then, these people attacked the demon palace to find Qin Feiyang. Now, with such a good opportunity in front of their eyes, how could they miss it? Bing Running glanced at the second princess of the dragons and the others and chuckled. Long time no see. The second princess of the dragons looked at Bing Running indifferently and said, "We don't seem to be very close to you. Don't be so cold." After all, our goal is the same. There is a good saying among humans. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Bing Running smiled. Be friends with you? The blood-red-clothed youth sneered and said. I'm really afraid that you will stab us in the back. Same to you, Bing Running said with a fake smile. They know each other? I'm really puzzled. Who are they? Also, why do they keep emphasizing the word human? Could it be that they are not human? The surrounding onlookers were puzzled. How lively! Accompanied by laughter, a silver-haired woman appeared in the sky above the sea with two old women. It was the little princess of the dragons. Accompanying her were the three powerhouses of the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance and the Shenmeng couple. After all, this was Qin Feiyang's battle. How could the alliance leader, deputy alliance leader, and Hall of Famers not care? Therefore, when the little princess of the dragons came to White Crane Island, they also took the initiative to come and watch the show. Seeing the arrival of the little princess of the dragons, not only the second princess of the dragons and the others, but even Bing Running couldn't help but frown. They seemed to be wary of the little princess of the dragons. You're living quite comfortably in the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance. The second princess of the dragons snorted with a hint of dissatisfaction in her tone. This was because over the years, no matter what actions or plans they had, the little princess of the dragons did not participate. It was as if she was out on a scenic tour. Not only the second princess, but the white-clothed young man, and the others were also very unhappy with the little princess of the dragons. But more than that, they felt helpless. This was because they couldn't do anything to this little sister. Of course. Besides, with my sisters and brothers around, is there a need for me to do anything? The little princess of the dragons giggled. The second princess and the others couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard this. She clearly wanted to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor, but she still found so many excuses. They didn't know that the little princess had already cooperated with Qin Feiyang. Bing Running glanced at the little princess of the dragons, then glanced at the second princess and the others. Looking at the white-haired old woman next to her, she asked in a low voice, Did you find the person who saved Qin Feiyang? No. These days I've searched all over the 4 continents, but I couldn't find the whereabouts of this person, let alone any related information. The white-haired old woman shook her head. Bing Running said angrily, I don't believe that he jumped out from a crack in a rock. I'm also very puzzled. Since this person saved Qin Feiyang and called him brother, he must be related to Qin Feiyang. But according to my investigation, this person has never appeared beside Qin Feiyang before. The white-haired old woman whispered. No matter what, you must find out who he is. Since he dares to go against the Feng people, he must be prepared to die. Bing Running snorted coldly. Buzz. As soon as she finished speaking, another space-time tunnel appeared in the sky. Everyone looked up and saw 2 young men walking out of the space-time tunnel. One of them was wearing a long golden robe and had an imposing appearance. It was the first prince of the dragons. The other person was wearing a white robe and had a faint smile on his handsome face. He gave off an amiable feeling from the bottom of his heart. That's right. He was the son of the ice dragon, the divine son of the dragons of the sky cloud realm, Long Chun. And on Long Chun's shoulder was a fire dragon. If Qin Feiyang saw this fire dragon, he would recognize it at a glance. It was the fire dragon that he had been chasing for a long time, because there was an eye-catching blood mark between its eyebrows. It's him. Bing Running and the others looked at Long Chun with cold eyes. Wasn't this the person they were looking for? But why was this person with the first prince of the dragons? Greetings, divine son. The second princess of the dragons and the others looked at each other, and immediately flew to Long Chun and bowed. What? Divine son? Since when did the dragons have a divine son? Why didn't we know? Bing Running and the others were bewildered. What puzzled them the most was that if he was the divine son of the dragons, why would he help Qin Feiyang, an enemy? At the same time, the surrounding crowd looked at Long Chun in disbelief, especially the 3 alliance masters and the Shenmeng couple, because they knew the identity of the second princess and the others. They were the prince and princess of the dragons. Even these high and mighty princes and princesses had to be so respectful to this person? How shocking was this person's identity? Long Chun was a very infectious person. No matter who saw him, they would have a good impression of him. Glancing at the second princess of the dragons and the others, Long Chun smiled and said, "Didn't I say earlier? You don't have to be so polite when you see me." Yes. The group nodded. Even so, how could they not be polite? This was the son of the ice dragon. Even the dragon king of the dragons had to be polite to this person. Long Chun looked at the surrounding crowd and finally his eyes fell on Bing Running. He smiled and said, "How are you?" Bing Running raised her eyebrows and said in a deep voice, "Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" Long Chun smiled and did not say anything. For a moment, no one paid attention to the eldest prince of the dragons. Everyone looked at Long Chun. The second princess of the dragons asked suspiciously, "Divine Son, do you know each other?" "Yes. We've met in the heavy region." Long Chun nodded. "You've been to the heavy region?" The group of people was surprised. The eldest prince of the dragons was the same. "Yes. I went there some time ago." Long Chun smiled. Hearing this, the surrounding crowd was speechless. The heavy region was such a dangerous place, but listening to this person's casual tone, it felt like he was going on a scenic tour. "Don't you know? Qin Feiyang had nowhere to run when we were chasing him, but because of his appearance, Qin Feiyang was saved." Bing Running looked at the eldest prince of the dragons and said in a deep voice, "What?" The dragons looked at Long Chun in surprise. There was such a thing? "Divine Son, why did you do this?" The third prince in white was puzzled. "He's an old friend. If I can help him, of course I'll help him." Long Chun smiled. "But," the third prince frowned. He had a stomach full of complaints, but he did not dare to show it in front of Long Chun. "You dragons are really interesting. You're chasing after him, and at the same time, someone is saving him." Bing Running sneered. The group of people from the dragon tribe looked at Bing Running with gloomy faces. Dragons. At the same time, the surrounding crowd was in an uproar. It was the first time they heard of this race. In fact, it was not hard to imagine. Since they were called dragons, they must be related to the divine dragons. But were these people really transformed from the divine dragons? Moreover, as a behemoth, why had they not heard of them before? Chapter 3567. Long Chun smiled faintly, looked at Bing Running and said, "It seems that you have a lot of opinions about me. What do you think? Although I don't know why the dragons have a god's son like you, you have to pay the price for causing trouble in the territory of the Feng people." Bing Running snorted coldly. Feng people? The onlookers were stunned once again. What kind of race was this? Phoenix? Could it be Phoenix? Price? Long Chun shook his head with a smile and said faintly, "I think that in the younger generation of the Sky Cloud boundary, except for Qin Feiyang, no one has the ability to make me pay the price." Arrogant. The middle-aged man behind Bing Running immediately shouted. Others were afraid of the dragons, but would the Feng people be afraid? They were all existences that ruled over a forbidden area. Of course not. "You are the arrogant one." Before Long Chun finished speaking, the fire dragon on his shoulder rose into the air, and his eyes were filled with astonishing ferocity. "Okay, let me see how strong you are." The middle-aged man took a step forward, and the law of force surged. A giant hand appeared out of nowhere, covering the sky and the sun. Supreme mystery, God's giant hand. Boom. With a loud bang, the giant hand fell, shattering the sky, and slammed toward the fire dragon and Long Chun. But for this, Long Chun was still smiling, and he didn't panic at all. However, except for the dragon's little princess, the dragon's crown prince and the others consciously stood in front of Long Chun, obviously to protect Long Chun. "How can you guess the strength of a godson? You'll have to get past me first." The fire dragon was extremely violent, and his body quickly grew. In the blink of an eye, a giant dragon of tens of thousands of feet was born, and his dragon's aura was monstrous. Boom. The next moment, a bolt of lightning shot up into the sky. An eye of thunder appeared, and streaks of lightning descended, blasting toward the giant hand. With an earth-shattering bang, the giant hand disintegrated and shattered on the spot. Supreme mystery, eye of thunder. The onlookers' pupils shrank, and they retreated. Unexpectedly, before Qin Feiyang had even appeared, these people had already started fighting. Moreover, the moment they attacked, they used their supreme profound meanings. You foam people dare to look down on a god's son? Die. The fire dragon let out an arrogant smile as the blood mark on its forehead let out a blinding light. It rushed in front of the middle-aged man with a speed comparable to a supreme-level auxiliary divine art. It was even faster than the Paragon-grade heaven-defying support-type divine technique, but it was only slightly slower than the instant time. This was the blessing of the blood character imprint. Regardless of whether it was speed or strength, it would increase by a large margin. The middle-aged man was also caught off guard and hurriedly threw out a punch. The fire dragon raised its huge tail and slammed it down. The middle-aged man was sent flying on the spot. His arm was lacerated and blood flowed out. What a powerful force. You've already broken the limits of your physical body? The middle-aged man was shocked. The limits of my physical body? Not interested. Huolong sneered in disdain, and the laws of destruction roared out, condensing into a statue of the god of destruction. The statue's huge hand slammed towards the middle-aged man, and the world was unable to withstand this divine might and began to collapse. What? The supreme mystery of the law of destruction. Everyone was shocked. Even the first prince of the dragons and the others were shocked. They knew a little about the fire dragon. Last time, it was killed by Qin Feiyang in the Yin Demon Land, and the golden spear escaped into the dragon's nest with its remnant soul. At that time, it didn't even have a supreme mystery. But how long had it been? Not only did he master the supreme mystery of the law of thunder, but he also mastered the supreme mystery of the law of destruction. Could it be that these were all the legacies that the god's son gave him? Indeed. Being a god's son was indeed different. The benefits were unimaginable. Regarding this, the middle-aged man was also shocked. With a wave of his hand, the power of death appeared and a blood moon rose, blasting toward the god of destruction's giant hand. The two collided. Heaven and earth fell into temporary darkness. But in the next moment, a bright divine light burst out, followed by a destructive power. This was the collision of the supreme mysteries of the law of destruction. How terrifying was its power! The surrounding onlookers retreated again and again, their hearts filled with shock. Usually, it was rare to even see a single supreme profundity, but now there were so many supreme profundities, and they were even supreme profundities of the strongest laws. Who exactly were these people? Moreover, if even the fire dragon was so strong, how terrifying was this so-called god's son? Rumble. The battle continued. The fire dragon teleported again, and instantly appeared above the middle-aged man. Its huge tail was like a majestic mountain ridge, slamming toward the middle-aged man. This speed again. What's going on? The speed of a single teleportation is even faster than a supreme-level heaven-defying auxiliary divine technique. The middle-aged man was bewildered. Bing Running, Pyrotechnic Glow, the old woman in white, and the others were also puzzled. For sovereigns, teleportation was the most common way of moving. Any assistant's divine art could surpass teleportation. But now, the fire dragon's teleportation was faster than a supreme mystery. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would have believed it? Boom. Another clash. Under the fire dragon's terrifying physical strength, the middle-aged man was once again sent flying. His body cracked and blood gushed out. And the fire dragon's eyes were filled with contempt. Its body exuded a terrifying aura as it charged toward the middle-aged man. Where it is possible to make mistakes, one should spare them. But then, Longchen smiled. Hearing this, the fire dragon stopped in the air and looked coldly at the middle-aged man. Then, it shrank its body and returned to Longchen's shoulder. The blood mark between its eyebrows also dimmed. The middle-aged man returned to Bing Running's side with lingering fear. How was it? Bing Running asked telepathically. Its speed, power, and physical body are too strange. I'm afraid that only a sovereign weapon can kill it. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Bing Running raised her eyebrows and looked up at Long Chun and the fire dragon. When did this man and dragon appear in the dragon's residence? There was no news at all. Long Chun waved his hand and a tea table and a chair appeared. Next, a dumbfounded scene appeared. Long Chun just sat on the chair and began to leisurely brew tea. Soon, a wisp of tea fragrance wafted out. Long Chun took a sip and shook his head. Qin Feiyang's tea is still the best. Looks like I'll have to ask him for some later. Hearing this, the first prince of the dragons and the others couldn't help but frown. The relationship between this god's son and Qin Feiyang was really unpredictable. Boom. At this moment, in the distant sky above the sea, another powerful and ferocious aura appeared, covering the sky and covering the earth as it surged towards them. Everyone was stunned. There's someone else? Then they all looked up, including Long Chun. He looked for a while, picked up the teacup and took a sip. He laughed and said, "Interesting, another old friend." Then he waved his hand gently and a chair appeared on the other side of the tea table. Obviously, this was prepared for the person who came. But the first prince didn't know and was about to sit down. Long Chun smiled. "This isn't for you to sit on." The first prince of the dragons looked at Long Chun in shock. When he came back to his senses, he looked at the distant sea again and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. He seemed to be the main character today. He thought that the chair was prepared for him, but it turned out that it wasn't. It was a little awkward. Boom. The aura was getting closer and closer. Finally, a huge monster entered everyone's line of sight. It was a snow python. Its body was more than 10,000 feet long, and covered with white scales like jade. The aura it emitted was actually not very strong. It was a perfected dominator. Seeing the appearance of the snow python, the first prince of the dragons couldn't help but frown. It was just a perfected dominator. Why would the divine prince care so much about it? No. There's a person lying on the back of the snow python. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Immediately, everyone looked at the back of the snow python and saw a young man in tattered black clothes lying lazily on the back of the snow python with his hands behind his head. He squinted his eyes and seemed to be sleeping. There was a dog tail in the corner of his mouth, but there was no aura on the young man. He looked like an ordinary mortal. It's him. The deputy leader's pupils shrank. You've seen him before? The leader was suspicious. No. But I heard Feiyang mention it. Back then, didn't Feiyang ask the Demon Palace and us to help find some old friends? This person is one of them. And I heard from Chu Yun that she had seen this person in the Eastern continent back then. But before she could react, this person activated the space-time law and disappeared without a trace. According to Chu Yun's deduction, this person's comprehension of the space-time law is not inferior to yours. The deputy leader secretly explained. Hearing this, the leader's heart trembled. Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, not to mention the lunatic, everyone saw how monstrous he was, but they didn't expect that there would be an even more terrifying young man. I think the seat of the divine prince of the dragons was prepared for this person. Qin Feiyang, the divine prince of the dragons, and this young man. It seems that they should all be people from the lower realm. The deputy leader whispered. In the blink of an eye, the snow python carried the young man and flew above the crowd as if there was no one else around. It said, "Boss, we've arrived at White Crane Island." So fast. I haven't slept enough yet. The young man slowly opened his eyes and sat on the snow python's back. He glanced at the crowd below with a lazy expression and said in surprise, "So many people." But I didn't see Qin Feiyang, the lunatic, or the white-eyed wolf. The snow python said. The main characters always appear last. The young man waved his hand and his gaze fell on Long Chun. Long Chun smiled at the young man. See, there's an acquaintance. The young man stood up and yawned. He walked step by step to Long Chun's side, and directly sat on the seat that Long Chun had prepared for him. The snow python also became the size of a palm, and landed on the young man's shoulder. Long time no see. Long Chun poured a cup of tea and handed it to the young man. The young man glanced at the teacup and said with a look of disdain, "Drinking tea is too refreshing. I'm not interested." Long Chun was stunned. He put down the teacup, took out a jar of wine, and handed it to the young man. The young man looked at the wine jar and nodded. "All right, I'll give you some face." After saying that, he took the wine jar. When he opened the jar, the shadow of a dragon rushed out. Wine Chi Dragon. Divine wine. Many people who loved wine couldn't help but swallow when they saw this scene. Chapter 3568. However, the young man took a sip of the divine wine and nodded reluctantly. "It's okay." This sentence was really infuriating. The first prince of the dragons and the others also showed a trace of displeasure. Before you even arrived, the Son of God had already prepared a seat for you, and then personally poured tea and wine for you. Even the Dragon King had never received such treatment in front of the Son of God. You, on the other hand, acted as if you didn't care. "I really don't know why you're so arrogant." However, seeing that Longchen didn't say anything, they couldn't flare up. Longchen looked at the young man and smiled. "I really didn't expect you to come. It's so lively. No matter how busy I am, I have to come and take a look." The young man yawned and said, "You're busy? I really can't tell." Longchen shook his head and smiled bitterly. "These years, you should have left your footprints in the sky cloud realm." In other words, the young man had been touring the mountains and rivers all these years. "More or less. I've been to the dragon nest and the phoenix nest, but there's nothing fun." The young man waved his hand casually. "What? He's been to our dragon nest? And to our phoenix nest?" The first prince of the dragons and the foam peoples Bing Runing and the others were all surprised. They didn't know about this at all. How did this person do it without anyone knowing? Could it be a spirit? Longchen was also surprised when he heard this. Although they had known each other in the ancient realm, he knew nothing about this person's background and identity. He only knew that this person was very strong and mysterious. Whoosh! During this period, many people came to White Crane Island. When they saw Longchen and the young man, they were all surprised. Because only the two of them were sitting there drinking tea and drinking wine, they were extremely eye-catching. Another moment passed. The three heads of the Demon Palace also came to White Crane Island. When they saw the young man, their pupils shrank slightly. Soon, He Zhongtian also arrived and flew directly to the second princess and the others. The heads of the Northern Continent's Sky Palace also arrived, but they didn't get close to White Crane Island and watched from afar. In short, now that there were many experts here, the Black Tortoise world, Princess Huofeng flew over from afar. When she saw the white-eyed wolf lying in the Devil's Land and reeking of alcohol, she frowned and said, "Isn't Qin Feiyang and the first prince of the dragons scheduled a battle today? Why are you still drinking here?" Princess Huofeng had sworn an oath of eternal loyalty to Qin Feiyang the moment she reconstructed her body and soul. Coupled with the seal of slavery, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf did not restrict her freedom. Therefore, she had been playing around in the Black Tortoise realm all these years. He knew Qin Feiyang's situation like the back of his hand. Little Qin Zi hasn't come out yet. What's the hurry? The white-eyed wolf waved its claws, completely unconcerned. Princess Huofeng's face darkened. Couldn't these fellows show some respect to their opponents? Then he ran around the castle. "Where are you going?" The white-eyed wolf stopped her. Princess Huofeng said grumpily, "Nonsense, of course I'm going to ask Qin Feiyang, that bastard, to come out of seclusion." She had been holding a grudge against the seal of slavery and the blood oath. "What does it have to do with you? Mind your own business. Come on, drink with me." The white-eyed wolf glared at Princess Huofeng, took out a wine jar, and threw it at her. Princess Huofeng caught the wine jar. She was slightly stunned and said angrily, "Who wants to drink with you? Do you think I'm Yin Zhongyue, who can't move her feet when she sees divine wine? See? You're not fun at all." The white-eyed wolf shook his head. "Get out of here." Princess Huofeng's face darkened. She threw the wine jar to the white-eyed wolf and continued to walk toward the castle. "Do you really want little Qin Zi to have a battle with the first prince of the dragons?" The white-eyed wolf was doubtful. "Of course. I want to see this bastard embarrass himself in public." Princess Huofeng said fiercely. "Then I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed." The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Let's wait and see. Princess Huofeng snorted coldly. Boom. But at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly emerged from the castle. First Princess Huofeng was stunned. She stopped in her tracks and a trace of anger crawled up her face. To actually make a breakthrough at this critical moment, she was really lucky. After a while, the aura dissipated, and the pressure of a sovereign divine weapon emerged. What is he doing? Princess Fire Phoenix was suspicious. She hurriedly ran towards the castle. However, the white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed. He activated the momentary time and stood in front of Princess Huofeng. He shook his head and said, "You can't go in now." Princess Huofeng didn't know, but the white-eyed wolf knew. Qin Feiyang must be opening the door to the sovereign realm. Of course, he couldn't let Princess Huofeng see this. Princess Huofeng was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Is there something shameful? Maybe he's taking a bath. If you barge in, aren't you afraid that he'll hold you responsible?" The white-eyed wolf smiled mockingly. Princess Huofeng's cheeks reddened when she heard this. She said angrily, "Dirty shameless. Hey, these words have nothing to do with me. No matter how beautiful you human women are in my eyes, you're just wild monkeys without hair." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. "You." Princess Huofeng stared at the white-eyed wolf angrily. "No. I forgot that you're not human. Why don't we try being together?" The white-eyed wolf looked at Princess Huofeng wretchedly. "You." Princess Huofeng had a look of disdain. "I'm not good enough for you. Don't be so arrogant. You're a fire phoenix. Although your bloodline isn't that good, I don't dislike it." The white-eyed wolf laughed. "Can I dislike you?" Princess Huofeng roared angrily. How could there be such a shameless wolf cub? He actually dared to compare bloodlines with fire phoenixes? Boom. At this time, a muffled loud sound rang out in the ancient castle. Princess Huofeng was very surprised. What exactly was Qin Feiyang doing in the ancient castle? Not long after, Qin Feiyang walked out in a new set of clothes. He was full of energy and vigor. "You're finally willing to come out." Princess Huofeng pursed her lips. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "Why don't we spar now?" Scram. The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang. "Why didn't you spar when you were a perfect dominator? Now that you broke through to a perfect dominator, you came to provoke me. Even if you want to bully me, you shouldn't bully me like this." Princess Huofeng asked, "Do you want to go to White Crane Island?" "I don't dare to go." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "How strange. There's actually something that Qin Feiyang doesn't dare to do?" Princess Huofeng laughed sarcastically. "Are you stupid? Everyone knows that your younger brother and the first prince of the dragons are messing around. Right now, I don't know how many strong enemies are waiting for me to appear on White Crane Island. If I run over, wouldn't I be walking into a trap?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. "You're the stupid one." Princess Huofeng glared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment. He looked at Princess Huofeng and said with a smile, "Right now, everyone's attention is on White Crane Island. Perhaps even your father is paying attention to the situation on White Crane Island. Therefore, now is the best time to go to the Phoenix Nest." "You're really sinister." Princess Huofeng looked at him with disdain. "Compared to you, I'm still lacking." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the snowflake appeared. The snowflake had already evolved into a supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact. After all, it had been absorbing origin energy. The speed of its evolution was naturally incomparable to other divine artifacts. "Don't play tricks. No matter who it is, I'll only give them one chance." Qin Feiyang handed the snowflake to Princess Huofeng. His eyes flickered with a cold light. "Who are you trying to scare?" Princess Huofeng coldly snorted in her heart and took the snowflake. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and two people and one wolf appeared in the sky above Sea Lion Island. The white-eyed wolf immediately looked in the direction of White Crane Island and said with a sneaky smile, "If Pyrotechnic Glow and the first prince of the dragons knew that we're going to the Phoenix Nest now, I wonder if they'll be angered to death? Don't worry about them." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at Princess Huofeng. He asked, Are there any restrictions in the phoenix nest? No. Princess Huafeng shook her head. While Princess Huafeng was answering, Qin Feiyang was secretly peeking at her inner thoughts. There were indeed no restrictions. This way, they wouldn't be afraid of encountering danger. This was because Bing Rinning and Pyrotechnic Glow had brought at least 5 sovereign divine weapons with them. There weren't many left in the phoenix nest. And now he had the ancient castle, the sword of Thanatos, the Horsedale Whisk and the slaughter zone. Even if he were to fight with the phone people in the phoenix nest, escaping shouldn't be a problem. Buzz. Just as Princess Huafeng was about to activate the snowflake, Qin Feiyang's divine sound transmission stone suddenly rang. Qin Feiyang took out the divine sound transmission stone and looked down at it. He frowned slightly and looked at Princess Huafeng. Wait a moment. With that, he activated the divine sound transmission stone. Elder Hua's figure immediately appeared. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang looked at Elder Hua suspiciously. Where are you now? Elder Hua asked. Qin Feiyang said truthfully, Sea Lion Island. I'm preparing to go to the phoenix nest to rescue Yin Zhongtian. Elder Hua was slightly taken aback and nodded. It's not a bad choice to go to the phoenix nest at this time. After all, everyone's attention is on White Crane Island. But there's a piece of news that I think I need to tell you in advance. What news? Qin Feiyang was curious. Elder Hua said, the fire dragon you're looking for and that young man are both on White Crane Island. The fire dragon. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but clench his fists. That's right. He's with the dragon's godson, and has mastered the supreme profundities of the law of thunder, and the law of destruction. Elder Hua nodded. The white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang looked at each other. The white-eyed wolf came back to his senses and looked at Elder Hua. That's impossible. If he really has mastered the 2 supreme profundities, he should have already activated them when he was in the Een Demon Land. It's true. Many people saw it with their own eyes. Elder Hua said. You're on White Crane Island too? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. I'm hiding in the spatial divine item to send you a message. And it's not just us. He Zhongtian, the people of the North Continent Sky Temple, the dragons, the phone people, and your master are all waiting for you on White Crane Island. Elder Hua said. As expected. Qin Feiyang sneered. The white-eyed wolf asked suspiciously, wait, who's that young man you mentioned just now? Elder Hua said. He's one of the people you asked us to look for. He has a snow python with him, and looks like he hasn't woken up yet. It's him? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, and couldn't help but feel excited. That person had finally appeared. Chapter 3569. Seeing how happy Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were, Elder Hua understood that this young man was not a match for them, but a friend. He smiled and asked, this person seems to be not simple? Qin Feiyang nodded. Until now, he still had not figured out this person's background, identity, and strength. Moreover, back then in the Valley of the Underworld King's Hell, he was able to ignore the corrosion of the evil force. Such a person was definitely not simple. What about Long Chun? As the son of the ice dragon, why would he save you in the heavy domain? Elder Hua was curious. This was the question he couldn't figure out the most. The relationship between the ice dragon, dragons, and Qin Feiyang was obvious to all. But as the son of the ice dragon, the son of the dragons, Long Chun had a completely different attitude towards Qin Feiyang. Wasn't this too strange? This person? I don't know either. But what I can be sure of is that if it wasn't for the fact that we were born with different standpoints, we would definitely be good friends. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Elder Hua was surprised to hear this. To be able to get such a good impression, it seemed that this Long Chun, whether it was his character, was quite good. He asked, then will you accept the challenge? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then said with a smile, let's see how it goes. Since the fire dragon had appeared, he should go to White Crane Island to get rid of this scourge. But in his heart, saving Yin Zhongtian was more important. All right. Elder Hua nodded. After the transmission ended, Qin Feiyang kept the sound transmission godstone, and looked in the direction of White Crane Island, his eyes flashing with a cold light. The fire dragon must die. This was something that no one could stop. Princess Huofeng looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, "You guys just said something about the ice dragon. What do you mean?" "You will know in the future. Let's go." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. So mysterious. Princess Huofeng pursed her lips and revived the snowflakes. A space-time rift appeared. Opening the gate of time and space would cause a huge commotion. Going to the phoenix nest this time, Qin Feiyang did not have any intention of sticking around. As long as he could find Yin Zhongtian, he would leave immediately. Therefore he chose Snowflake. Because Snowflake was the opening of a space-time tunnel, the commotion would be much smaller. Anyway, try not to attract the attention of phone people. As the space-time transmission channel appeared, Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, restrained his aura and said, "Let's go." Immediately, 2 people and 1 wolf stepped into the space-time tunnel. The people gathered on White Crane Island had no idea about Qin Feiyang's plan. Gradually, doubtful voices also appeared. Why isn't Qin Feiyang here yet? Could it be that he's hiding somewhere in seclusion and hasn't received any news of the challenge? Could it be that he doesn't dare to come? Are you kidding me? Have I never seen anything that he doesn't dare to do? That's right. Look at the former Blood Hall. How strong was it? Didn't they still kill their way into the Blood Hall and forcibly disintegrate it? I think he either didn't receive the news, or he was held back by something. Let's wait patiently. I believe that he will definitely appear. Now the people of the Sky Cloud realm had a kind of worship and faith for Qin Feiyang. At the same time, Pyrotechnic Glow and the first prince of the dragons couldn't help but frown. What was this person doing? The land of the heavy region. The core area. In front of a quiet courtyard, 2 people and a wolf appeared out of thin air. It was Qin Feiyang the white-eyed wolf, and Princess Huofeng. As soon as Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf appeared, they looked around. What entered their line of sight was an endless stretch of mountains and rivers. Towering mountains and steep ridges, verdant vegetation. Between the mountains, white mist lingered, and multicolored light shone for tens of thousands of feet, like a fairyland. The sky was cloudless, and the sun was shining brightly. This is the phoenix nest? Looking at the scene in front of them, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were both stunned. They thought that the place where the Fire Phoenix clan lived should be an endless sea of fire. The place where the Ice Phoenix lived was an endless glacier. But they never thought that it would be such a beautiful scenery. Moreover, the phoenix nest was very big. What they could see now was just the tip of the iceberg. "Your Highness." Suddenly, 2 surprised voices sounded. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were startled and hurriedly looked in the direction of the sound. They saw 2 old men quickly walking out of the courtyard. Both of them were wearing fiery red robes. Whether it was height, fat, thin, or old appearance, they were exactly the same, as if they were carved from the same mold. Obviously, they were a pair of twin brothers. "Don't be nervous, they are my followers and also my friends," Princess Huofeng said to Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, and immediately went up to them with a smile. "Daifuku Xiaofu, did you miss me?" "Yes. I miss you every day." The 2 old men were in tears, and went up to look at Princess Huofeng from left and right. They were so excited that their arms were trembling, and they asked, "Your Highness, are you all right? We thought we would never see you again." "Ba ba ba. Don't say such inauspicious words in the future." Princess Huofeng pretended to be angry. Yes. Your Highness, let us see if you are injured. Why have you become so thin? Look at this weak little body. I don't know how much you have suffered." "It's all our fault for not following you and protecting you." The 2 nodded repeatedly, their faces full of concern and self-blame. Really? Princess Huofeng was suspicious. She had indeed suffered a lot, but she did not seem to have become thin or weak. After all, she had lived quite comfortably in the Black Tortoise world, and Qin Feiyang did not restrict her freedom. Qin Feiyang. Suddenly, the 2 looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, and immediately looked as if they were facing a great enemy, and their eyes were full of anger. The man and the wolf were stunned. Why did they only see them now? Was their sense of existence so weak? Daifuku Xiaofu don't. I brought them here. Now they are our friends. Princess Huofeng quickly comforted the two. What? The two were stunned, and quickly looked at Princess Huofeng, and asked, Your Highness, why are you friends with them? They are people who want to kill you. There is a misunderstanding. I will explain it to you later. Don't make a fuss. Where is the human I asked you to treat well? Princess Huofeng asked. The two pointed to the courtyard, and said he is inside. Then did you hurt him? Princess Huofeng asked. She was afraid that when the two found out that Qin Feiyang had kidnapped her, they would make a move against Yin Zhongtian. Yes. We destroyed his Qi Ocean, and used the soul-sealing magic stone to seal his soul. The two nodded. Princess Huofeng glanced at Qin Feiyang, and seeing Qin Feiyang frown, she quickly turned to the two brothers and asked, Is that all? Did you do anything else to him? No. The two shook their heads. Princess Huofeng breathed a sigh of relief, and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, and snorted coldly, Don't put on such a long face. It's just destroying his Qi Ocean, and sealing his soul. There is no danger to his life. Qin Feiyang glanced at her indifferently, and then turned to the Daifuku brothers and said, Bring him out. Why should I? You hurt Her Highness, and made Her Highness suffer. How can we hand him over to you so easily? The two brothers said angrily. Qin Feiyang raised an eyebrow. Cough cough. Princess Huofeng coughed dryly, and looked at the two brothers, waving her hand, and said, Bring him out. Your Highness. The two men frowned. What was going on here? Princess Huofeng said, If I ask you to go, then go. When there is time, I will explain it to you slowly. The two men looked at each other, and the confusion on their faces grew. They then turned to the eldest princess and sighed. I'm afraid. You will have to go in personally. Why? Princess Huofeng was suspicious. You will know when you go in. With that, the two men retreated to the side. Princess Huofeng frowned, and strode to the front of the attic. The attic had a total of 3 floors, and it was antique in style. When she reached the front of the door, Princess Huofeng looked inside, and her expression froze. What is going on? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf frowned, and walked over quickly. The Daifuku brothers wanted to stop them, but when they thought of Princess Huofeng's attitude towards Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, they suppressed the disgust in their hearts, and followed behind the man and the wolf without saying a word. Soon, the man and the wolf also walked to the front of the door, and stood beside Princess Huofeng. When they looked inside, their bodies froze. Inside there was a spacious hall, and all kinds of flower pots were placed. In the middle, a few chairs were placed neatly, and it was quite exquisite. On the left there was a guqin, and it emitted a hazy glow. It was obvious. This was the place where Princess Huofeng usually played her guqin. And on the right side of the hall, there was an exquisite tea table. At that moment, on the tea table, the teapot was boiling, and the faint fragrance of tea wafted. 2 figures sat facing each other. One of them was Yin Zhongtian. Yin Zhongtian was facing the door, and he could see Qin Feiyang and the others at a glance. At that moment, Yin Zhongtian was looking up at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, and there was a smile on his face, and his clothes were very clean and neat. How was this the look of a prisoner? He was obviously here as a guest. We have been so worried all day, and he is just sitting here leisurely drinking tea? The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. He had not expected to see such a scene. Qin Feiyang was also speechless. With Yin Zhongtian's cultivation level, he could not sense it. And on his wrist there was indeed a bracelet. It was made with the spirit-sealing magic stone, and it had the miraculous power to seal one's soul. As long as one wore the spirit-sealing magic stone, the power of one's soul would not be able to be unleashed, and one would be no different from an ordinary mortal. But other than that, he really did not find any other problems. His entire person was glowing, and he was in high spirits. Before he came, he had already mentally prepared himself to see a bloody scene. But in the end, what he saw before his eyes was such a scene, and he was completely stunned. He then looked at the person sitting opposite Yin Zhongtian. Although he could only see the back of that person, but he could tell that it was a middle-aged man, dressed in a fiery red robe, and there was no aura about him, but he gave off an unparalleled sense of oppression. That back was one that Qin Feiyang was familiar with. It was the clan leader of the Fire Phoenix clan. Chapter 3570. The Fire Feng people's chief was here? And he was drinking tea with Yin Zhongtian? Qin Feiyang, White-Eyed Wolf, and Princess Huofeng came back to their senses and looked at each other. What was going on? How could they see such a harmonious scene? It was simply beyond their expectations. Why are you standing at the door? Do you want me to come out and welcome you personally? The Fire Feng people's chief said without turning his head. The two men and one wolf looked at each other, put away the snowflakes and walked into the hall. Princess Huofeng did not forget to glare fiercely at Daifuku and Xiaofu. The brothers also expressed that they were very innocent, because the Fire Feng people's chief was not informed by them at all. Brother Qin, Brother Wolf King. Yin Zhongtian got up and smiled. Elder Yin, you really know how to enjoy life. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Yin Zhongtian laughed involuntarily. In fact, he was also very surprised. At first, when he found out that Princess Huofeng had brought him to the phoenix nest, he thought that the following days would be worse than death. But he did not expect that not only did Princess Huofeng not hurt him, she even asked the Daifuku brothers to treat him well. What surprised him the most was, a few days ago, when the Fire Feng people came here and accidentally found him, they did not want to kill him, but only asked the Daifuku brothers to destroy his energy sea and put on a bracelet. And in the past few days, the Fire Feng people's chief would come to drink tea and chat with him whenever he had time. Although they had been together for a period of time, he still did not understand the real intention of the Fire Feng people's chief. Sit down. The Fire Feng people's chief looked up at Qin Feiyang, White-Eyed Wolf, and Princess Huofeng and said. The two men and one wolf sat at the side. Yin Zhongtian also returned to his seat and poured tea for Qin Feiyang. Princess Huofeng said unhappily, Father, why don't you show some concern when you see me return? Fire Feng people said, I heard the conversation between you and Daifuku just now. Since you are fine, why are you still asking so many questions? Then aren't you afraid that I'll suffer outside? Princess Huofeng said angrily. Who dares to bully my daughter? Although the chief of the Fire Feng people's tone was very calm, there was an undeniable domineering aura in it. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Am I right? Right. Qin Feiyang nodded. I'm already under your control. What right do you have? Princess Huofeng glared at Qin Feiyang. Control? The Fire Feng people raised their eyebrows. Yeah. Not only did he use the slave seal to control me, he even forced me to swear a blood oath. Father, you don't know this, but he said that this blood oath will come true. Princess Huofeng's face was full of grievances. What? A blood oath that will come true? The Fire Feng people looked at Princess Huofeng suspiciously. The Daifuku brothers next to her were also stunned. I'm not lying to you. He really said that. Looking at the three's reaction, Princess Huofeng said anxiously. The Fire Feng people looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Is that so? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. You are courting death. Get rid of the control on Her Highness immediately. When the Daifuku brothers heard this, they immediately stared at Qin Feiyang with murderous intent. I don't dare to do that. After all, we are in the phoenix nest now. If you get rid of the control on her, won't our lives be in your hands? Qin Feiyang held a teacup and smiled faintly as he sipped on his tea. You. The brothers bristled with anger. The Fire Feng people waved his hand and stopped the brothers. He sized up Qin Feiyang and said calmly, Do you think that you can threaten me by controlling Xiaowu? Xiaowu? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The Fire Feng people said, Although Xiaowu's life is in your hands now, as long as I say the word, you will never be able to leave the phoenix nest. I think it is worth it to exchange 3 of your lives for Xiaowu's life. Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf's heart skipped a beat. How could he say such a thing? How ruthless. Princess Huofeng was stunned for a moment and said angrily, Father, what do you mean? You don't care about my life? Children shouldn't interrupt when adults are talking. The Fire Feng people glared at her. My child. Princess Huofeng looked at the Fire Feng people in shock. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were also stunned. Then they tried to hold back their laughter. What are you laughing at? Princess Huofeng glared at them, her face full of displeasure. You have to understand. As parents, no matter how old or strong their children are, they will always be children in their hearts. This is their love for you. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly. Get lost. Princess Huofeng shouted coldly. The Fire Feng people looked at the two bickering and frowned slightly. Why was the relationship between these two little fellows a little incomprehensible? Logically speaking, shouldn't his daughter hate this person after being controlled by him? But now, although his daughter scolded Qin Feiyang again and again, he didn't see a look of disgust on her face. Putting everything else aside, this human must have been very good to his daughter during this period. That's enough. The Fire Feng people waved his hand and looked at Qin Feiyang. Tell me, what is all this about? Qin Feiyang said, let your daughter do it. The Fire Feng people turned to look at the eldest princess and said, Xiao Wu, tell me, is it Qin Feiyang or Bing Running who wants to kill you? They both want to kill me. Princess Huofeng snorted. Don't joke around. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. The white-eyed wolf sneered. Women are indeed unreliable. Princess Huofeng raised her eyebrows and pointed at the white-eyed wolf. She said sadly, Father, it not only tortured me, but also teased me. Huh. As soon as this was said, everyone was stunned. Especially Qin Feiyang and Yin Zhongtian. Teased? When did this happen? Ahem. The white-eyed wolf coughed dryly and said angrily, Bitch, don't talk nonsense. I'm talking nonsense? Who said that I have to be everywhere? And who said that you're more than enough for me? What? You dare to do it but don't dare to admit it? Princess Huofeng looked at him with disdain. The white-eyed wolf was speechless for a moment and felt guilty. Brother Wolf, not bad. You're finally enlightened. Don't worry, I'll definitely support you. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. What nonsense are you talking about? At that time, I just thought it was fun and made a joke. The white-eyed wolf glared at Qin Feiyang. Princess Huofeng said again, Father, you don't know, but this damn wolf cub looks down on the power of the Fire Phoenix bloodline. Looks down on the power of our bloodline? The Fire Feng people's chief and the Daifuka brothers couldn't help but frown when they heard this. The white-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly and said, that in terms of bloodline, I really don't like it. Sorry, I like to tell the truth. Bastard. The Daifuka brothers were instantly furious. Not only did he tease Her Highness, but he also insulted their bloodline in public. It was simply unforgivable. The Fire Feng people's chief also looked a little angry. He chuckled and said, Then let me see what kind of noble bloodline you have. My bloodline power? The white-eyed wolf was stunned and said proudly, Even if I show it to you, you may not know. Is that so? Then I really want to see it. The Fire Feng people's chief sneered. Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat and he said, White-eyed wolf, why don't you let him see it? Maybe he knows the origin of your bloodline power. The white-eyed wolf heard this and felt that it made sense. After all, the Fire Feng people's chief was more knowledgeable than them. Immediately, it waved its claws and a drop of golden blood flowed out and floated in the void. It was as dazzling as gold. The Fire Feng people's chief and the Daifuka brothers looked at the blood and couldn't help but be stunned. Then a trace of surprise crept up in their eyes. As divine phoenixes, they were quite sensitive to the bloodline power of fierce beasts. When they looked at this drop of blood, they immediately judged that this was a bloodline power that was not inferior to their Feng people's. They could even faintly feel a sense of oppression in this blood. One had to know. The bloodline power of the Fire Phoenix was already the noblest and top bloodline. Even the Fire Phoenix could feel a sense of oppression. One could imagine how terrifying this bloodline power was. However, they really didn't know what kind of bloodline power this was. Because it was also the first time they saw it. Could it be a mutation? The so-called mutation was a newly born bloodline power that didn't exist in the world before. Don't tell me that even you don't know. The white-eyed wolf glanced at the three of them. Ahem. The Fire Feng people's chief concealed the embarrassment in his expression and said lightly, We may still need to investigate. If you don't know, then don't pretend. The white-eyed wolf despised him. The veins on the forehead of the Fire Phone People's chief suddenly jumped. Could he save some face? Then he looked at Princess Huofeng and said angrily, "Don't mess around. Tell me what's going on." "It's actually Bing Runing. She came to snatch the god-slaying tablet, and asked the Ice Phoenix sword to kill me," Princess Huofeng said. Hearing this, the Fire Phone People's chief and the Daifuka brothers suddenly clenched their fists, making cracking sounds. "In other words, Qin Feiyang did save you?" the Fire Phone People's chief asked. "Yes. If he didn't ask the Sword of Thanatos to protect a wisp of my divine soul, I would have been killed." Princess Huofeng nodded. "Damn it. I'll go and settle the score with them," Daifuku roared. "That's right. We usually give in to the Ice Phoenix clan. Do they really think that we're afraid of them?" Xiaofu was also seething with anger. "Stop!" the Fire Phone People's chief shouted. "Clan leader, can we still tolerate this?" The brothers were stunned and turned to look at the Fire Phone People's chief angrily. The Fire Phone People's chief said in a low voice, "Do you want to see the Phone People kill each other and eventually be destroyed?" "No. But they've gone too far," the brothers said angrily. "I know what I'm doing. Don't interfere in this matter. I'll deal with it." The Fire Phone People's chief waved his hand, not allowing any disobedience. Hearing this, the brothers' faces were filled with helplessness. Princess Huofeng looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and shrugged. She meant, "See? Father won't fall out with the Ice Phoenix clan for me." Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf frowned. It was a good thing to consider the big picture, but if they blindly tolerated it, it might be a sign of ignorance. After all, she wasn't an ordinary clansman, but his own daughter. If he didn't stand up for his daughter when she was wronged, then as a father, he would be a little incompetent. Chapter 3571. However, as outsiders, they really couldn't intervene in this matter. The Fire Phone People took a long sip of tea and calmed the anger in their hearts. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "I heard that the first prince of the dragons challenged you today? Senior, you've been paying attention to this matter." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "And your son, Pyrotechnic Glow? I really don't know where he got the courage to come and challenge little Qin Zi." The white-eyed wolf's words were full of contempt. The Fire Phone People were very unhappy with the white-eyed wolf's attitude. He was a guy who deserved a beating. He said faintly, "Of course I gave him the courage." "Then where did you find the courage?" The white-eyed wolf smiled mockingly. The Fire Phone People suddenly stood up and said angrily, "Are you challenging my patience?" The white-eyed wolf hurriedly said, "I wouldn't dare. You're the clan leader of the Fire Phoenix clan. In front of you, how can I not obediently lie down?" Although he said so, there was no respect at all. If not for Long Chen's appearance, he and Qin Feiyang would have died in the hands of this person, so he had been unhappy. "Brother Wolf King, let's talk nicely. Actually, the Fire Phone People are quite a good person." Yin Zhongtian comforted him. "I can't tell." The white-eyed wolf snorted. Yin Zhongtian smiled helplessly. There was no other way. This wolf cub was a fearless person. The Fire Phone People took a few deep breaths and returned to their seats. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Tell me, how can I get rid of the control over my daughter?" Princess Huofeng also immediately looked at Qin Feiyang. Who would want to be controlled by others? No one. Although he knew that Qin Feiyang would not compromise so easily, Qin Feiyang was indeed in a difficult position now. Qin Feiyang remained silent. "Since you haven't decided yet, I'll state my conditions first. First, I will not interfere with the dispute between you and the dragons for 1,000 years. You can take it as the Phone People not helping either side. This is my bottom line. Secondly, I will let you leave the phoenix nest safely. Thirdly, this wolf cub flirted with my daughter. I'll pretend that it never happened." At this point, White-Eyed Wolf said angrily, "I'll say it again. I didn't flirt with her." However, the Fire Phone People ignored him directly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and continued, "Fourthly, you saved my daughter. I can agree to one of your requests. As long as it's not too much, These conditions are considered polite to you. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "Indeed, it's very polite. However, I don't understand why you won't interfere with the grudge between the dragons and me for 1,000 years. There are some things that I can't control, and I can't decide. For example, above the dragons, there is the Supreme Dragon King. The Dragon King is the true ruler of the dragons." The Fire Phone people said. Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf's hearts trembled. Did this mean that the Phone people also had an existence comparable to the Dragon King? There are some things that we can't say clearly. The Fire Phone people said lightly, "Okay. I can remove the control of your daughter, but you have to answer a few of my questions." Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, and said to the Fire Phone people, "What questions?" The Fire Phone people heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as they could talk, because he didn't want to make a big fuss. After all, the young man in front of him was not an ordinary person. If they really fought, the Phone people would also pay a big price. This would be detrimental to the future development of the Phone people. Therefore, it was best to solve this peacefully. "Why did you want to kill me when you knew that I had the purple gold dragon blood? Does the purple gold dragon really exist in this world? If it really exists, what is the relationship between the Phoenix clan and the Dragon clan, and the purple gold divine dragon?" Because I found that the dragons and the Phone people immediately changed their attitude when the purple gold dragon blood was mentioned. Qin Feiyang said. Hearing this, the Fire Phone people lowered his head and pondered for a while. Then he sighed and said, "The purple gold dragon does exist in this world." Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and asked, "Where is it now? How many are there?" These questions are related to a lot of secrets. Only a few people know about it. I can't tell you, but don't be disappointed. Although I can't tell you these things, there is one thing I can tell you, and that is the origin of the purple gold dragon blood in your body. The Fire Phone people said. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists when he heard this. After working so hard for so long, he finally knew the origin of the purple gold dragon blood. He was looking forward to it. A long, long time ago, there was a human man who fell in love with a purple gold dragon. At that time many people objected. Although this relationship was not blessed by others, they still came together regardless of everything. If my guess is correct, the people of your bloodline should be their descendants. The Fire Phone people said. Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other. So this was the origin of the Qin clan. Yin Zhongtian asked. Then this human man, is his surname Qin? Yes. The Fire Phone people nodded. What is his full name? Qin Feiyang was very excited. This man with the surname Qin was the ancestor of the Qin clan. How could he not be excited? The Fire Phone people shook their heads. Obviously, this was also a secret. The White-Eyed Wolf said angrily. Are you sincere or not? Isn't it just a name? I didn't ask you to say anything else. If I'm not sincere, I won't even tell you this. I'll say the same thing. There are many things that I can't control. I don't ask for your understanding, but don't make it difficult for me. The Fire Phone people said. Qin Feiyang did not tighten his grip. What kind of secret was this? And who was involved? Why was even a supergiant like the Fire Phone people so afraid of it? Princess Huofeng glanced at Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf, then looked carefully at the Fire Phone people and said, Father, I want to know too. Go away. The Fire Phone people glared at her. Even I can't know? Princess Huofeng was unhappy. Not only you, even I only knew about it after I sat on the throne. The Fire Phone people rolled their eyes at her. How ignorant. Then what about the elders of the Phone people? Don't you know? Princess Huofeng was a little unconvinced. Yes. The Fire Phone people nodded. All right. Princess Huofeng nodded helplessly. Then she looked at Qin Feiyang as if to say, I've already helped you, don't blame me. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. He looked at the Fire Phone people and said, All right, I won't force you. As for what you said, you can agree to one of my requests. I think. Why don't you lend me a few sovereign divine weapons? The Fire Phone people's mouth twitched when he heard this. This kid really didn't know what it meant to be polite. How could he borrow sovereign divine weapons so casually? The Daifuku brothers and Princess Huofeng also looked at Qin Feiyang speechlessly. Even for the Feng people, sovereign divine weapons were the most precious treasures of the clan. How could they lend them to others? Even to future enemies? One will do. Qin Feiyang also knew that this was impossible, but he was still a little unwilling to give up. Not one, not even half. Change to another condition. The Fire Feng people shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, I don't need anything else. The Fire Feng people said, I don't care. Other than the sovereign divine weapons, everything else is negotiable. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. Suddenly his eyes lit up and he said with a smile, Then how about this, betroth your daughter to the white-eyed wolf? What? The white-eyed wolf and Princess Huofeng stood up at the same time and glared at Qin Feiyang. The Fire Feng people and the Daifuku brothers' faces immediately darkened. Yin Zhongtian was calmly stroking the beard beneath his chin. That was a good idea. If that ingrate were to become the son-in-law of the Fiery Phoenix clan leader, then they would all be one big family. If one's family was in trouble, who would not lend a helping hand? Not even? Qin Feiyang asked. Nonsense. Of course not. The white-eyed wolf, Princess Huofeng, the Fire Feng people's chief, and the Daifuku brothers all shouted at the same time. They were so angry that their noses were crooked. What was he doing? Qin Feiyang smiled awkwardly. The Fire Feng people rubbed his forehead and sighed. Why don't I lend you a sovereign divine weapon? If he really lost his daughter, then the loss would be even greater. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed when he heard this. Chief, you can't. If we really lend it to him, then the dragons will definitely misunderstand that the Feng people have formed an alliance with him. Moreover, what if he doesn't return it to us? The Daifuku brothers immediately stopped the Fire Feng people's chief. So what if it's a misunderstanding? Would the dragons dare to attack our phoenix nest? As for whether he will return it or not, that's even less of a concern. Because in this world, no one can restrict the freedom of a sovereign divine weapon. The Fire Feng people's chief smiled proudly and looked at Qin Feiyang. But we won't lend it to you for free. After this, not only will you have to return it to us intact, but you will also have to return the God-slaying tablet to us. As expected, you haven't forgotten about the God-slaying tablet. Qin Feiyang mumbled. The Fire Feng people's chief hadn't mentioned the God-slaying tablet before, so he was still a bit hopeful. He smiled and said, I will definitely return the sovereign divine weapon to you. But let's talk about the God-slaying tablet later. After all, we have to respect the sovereign divine weapon's will, right? The Fire Feng people's chief laughed and said, It seems that you are very confident that you can persuade the God-slaying tablet to follow you. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, But we have to try. The Fire Feng people's chief looked deeply at Qin Feiyang, then turned to Princess Huofeng and said, Xiaowu, the God-slaying tablet is yours. You decide. Then let the God-slaying tablet stay in the Black Tortoise world. Princess Huofeng's eyes flashed and said with a smile. Ah. The Fire Feng people's chief and the Daifuku brothers looked at Princess Huofeng in surprise. Father, you don't know, but the Black Tortoise world is an independent world. The God-slaying tablet is now absorbing the origin energy there. Its evolution speed is much faster than absorbing the gravity in the gravity region. Princess Huofeng said telepathically. An independent world? The three's eyes trembled. I'm not fooling you. I've been in the Black Tortoise world for tens of thousands of years. I know the situation there like the back of my hand. Princess Huofeng said to herself. Tens of thousands of years? The three were stunned. I forgot to tell you that the Black Tortoise world has a time array that lasts 1 day and 1,000 years. Princess Huofeng said telepathically. I see. The three suddenly understood. No wonder she had such a cultivation at such a young age. Right. There's one more thing. I heard that Qin Feiyang has the first volume of the alchemy scripture. Princess Huofeng suddenly said. What? The first volume of the alchemy scripture? Doesn't that mean they've all opened the door of potential? The three were shocked. Yes. Not only them, but many creatures in the Black Tortoise world have also obtained potential pills. These are the pills that can open the door of potential. However, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf thought that I didn't know and tried to hide it from me. Princess Huofeng smiled proudly. Chapter 3572. The first volume of the Pill Codex. The Fire Phone people took a deep breath and said telepathically, Xiao Wu continued to follow them. Why? Princess Huofeng asked quickly. She was annoyed when she saw Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. If she continued to follow these two bastards, wouldn't it affect her mood? For the first volume of the Pill Codex, of course. If the phone people can get the first volume of the Pill Codex, we will be able to suppress the dragons. The Fire Phone people's voice was full of hope. But they know the importance of the Pill Codex. You said that you will attack them after 1,000 years. How can they give it to us? Princess Huofeng said secretly. So, it depends on your ability. No matter how bad it is, we have to find a way to make them help you open the door of potential. You are my daughter, and also the #1 person in our Fire Phoenix clan. However, Bing Running is not bad either. The most important thing is that she is more ruthless than you. To be honest, if this continues, I am really worried about you. But if you can open the door of potential, I don't think Bing Running or the other clansmen will be able to shake your position. The Fire Phone people said telepathically. Princess Huofeng thought for a while and sighed. Although it makes sense, it will be difficult to make Qin Feiyang help me open the door of potential. Everything depends on effort. The Fire Phone people smiled secretly. Clan leader, Your Highness, we don't have to go through so much trouble. We can use our advantage to negotiate with him. Daifuku said suddenly. What advantage? The Fire Phone people looked at him suspiciously. Our advantage is that we are strong and have many Dominator Divine weapons. Didn't you agree to lend him a Dominator Divine weapon? Why don't you lend him another one? Use it to exchange for the pill to open the door of potential. Actually, I agree with Your Highness. It is too difficult to take the Pill Codex from him. If that's the case, why should we take this risk? Patriarch, you must know that Qin Feiyang is able to live so comfortably under the pursuit of the dragons. It can be seen that he has extraordinary means. And you want His Highness to snatch the pill scripture. If he succeeds, it's fine. But if he fails and falls into Qin Feiyang's hands, do you dare to imagine what will happen to His Highness? Daifuku thought. He had considered everything thoroughly. Because he was a bystander, he was not blinded by greed. As for the Fire Phone people, upon hearing that the first volume of the Pill Sutra was in Qin Feiyang's hands, the greed in his heart instantly caused him to lose his usual wisdom. That makes sense. When the Fire Phone people's chief heard this, he suddenly came to a realization. How foolish. How could he use his daughter's life as a stake? If we really want to get the Pill Sutra, I think there is only one way, and that is to form an alliance with Qin Feiyang. After all, the reason why he came to us phone people is to form an alliance. But Patriarch, you don't agree. Although we don't know why, since you don't agree, we can only take a step back and try to open the door of potential for His Highness. I think as long as we make it clear and don't play any tricks, Qin Feiyang will consider it. Daifuku thought. I also agree with Big Brother's suggestion. Erfu echoed. In short, no matter what, they couldn't let His Highness take the risk. The Fire Phone people's chief glanced at the two brothers and sighed. I'm the patriarch of the family. At the critical moment, I'm not as rational as you. I didn't even consider Xiao Wu's safety. I'm not worthy of being a father. Patriarch, don't blame yourself. Because we know that no matter what you do, your first consideration is the interests of the entire phone people. The two brothers comforted him. The Fire Phone people's chief shook his head and smiled bitterly. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Brother Qin, since Xiao Wu said so, I'll leave the god-slaying tablet in your Black Tortoise realm. Also, I can lend you a sovereign divine weapon. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, and a trace of joy appeared on their faces. However, I have a condition. The Fire Phone people's chief said. Qin Feiyang wasn't surprised by this. After all, a person like the Fire Phone people's chief wouldn't help him for no reason. The Fire Phone People's chief said, "My condition is that you open the door of potential for Xiao Wu and Little Hui." Little Hui? Princess Huofeng and the Daifuke brothers were stunned. The Fire Phone People's chief glanced at Princess Huofeng and said, "With such benefits, we can't forget your brother." Princess Huofeng couldn't help laughing. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf couldn't help but frown when they heard the Fire Phone People's chief's condition. How did this person know that he could open the door of potential for others? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at the White-Eyed Wolf and said, "Has Princess Huofeng left the Devil's Land these years?" "She often runs out," the White-Eyed Wolf secretly said. "She often runs out?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. Then, didn't this woman already know the potential pill like the back of her hand? The White-Eyed Wolf frowned and said, "Didn't you not restrict her freedom?" Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "I didn't restrict her freedom, but it's only limited to the Devil's Land. If you let her run out, then how can our secret be hidden? You're really unreliable. Why didn't you say so earlier?" The White-Eyed Wolf snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang didn't have the strength to complain. This was common sense, okay? Was there a need for a special reminder? Since things had already come to this, there was no point in saying more. Besides, in fact, in the Sky Cloud realm, the situation in the Black Tortoise realm was no longer a secret. As for the pill to open the door of potential, although not many people knew about it now, it would definitely be exposed to the world in the future. It was only a matter of time. The Fire Phone People looked at Qin Feiyang, who was silent for a long time, and said with a smile, "I don't think this condition is too much, right? It depends on how you calculate it. If I only borrow it once, then I will definitely suffer a loss. After all, no matter how powerful the sovereign divine weapon is, it's not as valuable as opening the door of potential, not to mention helping the siblings open it." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The Fire Phone People narrowed his eyes slightly. Sure enough, this little guy was difficult to deal with. He smiled and said, "Then what do you think is not a loss?" "The right to use it." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said, "The right to use it." The Fire Phone People was taken aback. "That's right. Senior, didn't you promise that you won't interfere in the feud between me and the dragons for 1,000 years? Then you might as well give this junior the right to use it for 1,000 years. In other words, after 1,000 years, this junior will return the two sovereign divine weapons to you," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. 1,000 years. The Fire Phone People lowered his head and didn't say anything. Daifuke secretly said, "Patriarch, 1,000 years is very fast, it doesn't matter." The Fire Phone People sighed and said, 1,000 years is very fast, but there are also many variables in 1,000 years. Daifuku was silent for a while and said, "Then you decide for yourself." Indeed. For cultivators, 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Basically, a closed-door training was tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. However, if 1,000 years were to be spent on Qin Feiyang, a human, it would be hard to predict the changes that would occur. "Senior, take your time to think about it, there's no hurry." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, picked up the teacup, and drank leisurely. Yin Zhongtian looked at this scene, and was more and more impressed with Qin Feiyang's state of mind. Facing the patriarch of the Fire Phoenix clan, he could still be so calm. How many people in the world could do that? The Fire Phone People pondered for a while, and finally gritted his teeth and nodded. "All right, I agree to give you the right to use it for 1,000 years, but you must promise to return it to me after 1,000 years." "Of course." Qin Feiyang nodded. Princess Huofeng said, "Don't just talk, make a blood oath too. Children shouldn't interrupt when adults are talking." The White-Eyed Wolf glared fiercely. Princess Huofeng's face darkened, and said angrily, "Damn wolf cub, are you asking for a beating? Can you do it?" The White-Eyed Wolf looked at her mockingly. Princess Huofeng was speechless. With the 5 supreme laws, unless it was a powerhouse like her father, the average person would not be enough to fill the gaps between the White-Eyed Wolf's teeth. The Fire Phone People looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a faint smile, "Forget about the blood oath. I believe in your character, so please do not betray my trust in you." "You trust me?" so of course I will not betray you. This is the basic principle of life. Qin Feiyang smiled. Very good. The fire phone people waved his hand, and two dazzling divine lights appeared. Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and Yun Zhongtian looked up, and saw a divine jade and a thin sword floating in front of the fire phone people. The divine jade, Qin Feiyang had seen it before. When he was in the inner region, the divine jade was floating above the fire phone people's head, and that thin sword was about 3 feet, and 2 fingers wide. Its appearance was similar to the Ice Phoenix sword. But the difference was that the Ice Phoenix sword seemed to be condensed from ice, and this thin sword seemed to be cast from magma, and a fire phoenix could be faintly seen dancing on the sword's body. These two sovereign divine weapons are the Fire Phoenix sword and the Fire Phoenix divine jade. From now on, they will listen to your orders. However, they also have their own principles, and will never harm the Fire Phoenix clan. Do you understand? The Fire Phone people asked. Understood. Qin Feiyang nodded. In any case, except for the Fire Phoenix clan, the Fire Phoenix sword and the Fire Phoenix divine jade would obey all other orders. The Fire Phone people waved his hand, and the two sovereign divine weapons immediately swept in front of Princess Huafeng. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Little Dance will be with you for the time being, and after this lesson, I don't feel at ease leaving her alone outside, so I gave her to protect herself first. When she opens the door of potential, if she wants to be separated from you, she will hand her over to you. But don't worry, this won't affect you from commanding the two sovereign divine weapons. The Fire Phone people laughed. Alright. Qin Feiyang nodded. As long as the two sovereign divine weapons listened to his orders, it wouldn't matter much even if they were given to Princess Huafeng. Princess Huafeng put away the two sovereign divine weapons, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "We've talked about everything, and it's time to settle the score with Bing Runing. It seems like you can't wait." Qin Feiyang laughed. Nonsense. Do you think I'm that easy to bully? Princess Huafeng sneered. With the sovereign divine weapons, she was more confident. Chapter 3573. The Fire Phone people looked at the Daifuku brothers and said, "Follow Xiao Wu and ensure her safety." Yes. The two brothers nodded respectfully. The Fire Phone people then looked at Princess Huafeng and sighed. "Xiao Wu, although you hate Bing Runing, I still have to say that you should look at the big picture." "I know." Princess Huafeng waved her hand impatiently and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Quickly remove your control over me and set off." Qin Feiyang's mind moved, and the slave seal was immediately removed. However, Qin Feiyang was a little troubled when faced with the blood oath. He transmitted his voice, "Snowflake, how do I remove the blood oath?" "It's very simple. Use your blood essence." Snowflake told Qin Feiyang how to remove the blood oath. Qin Feiyang nodded in understanding and extracted a drop of blood essence. He muttered, "With the heavens as the witness, with the blood essence as the guide, remove the oath." As his voice fell, he pointed his finger and the blood essence dissipated, turning into a mysterious seal and entering Princess Huafeng's body. Princess Huafeng immediately felt the two oath seals in her body disintegrate on the spot. The feeling of freedom is so good. As soon as the oath seals disappeared, she felt her body become light. "Let's go." Following closely, she looked at Daifuku and said. Daifuku raised his big old hand and waved it gently. A space-time transmission channel immediately appeared. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's pupils shrank. This person actually mastered the laws of space-time. "Be careful." The Fire Phone people warned. "Okay." Princess Huafeng nodded and took the lead to step into the space-time channel. "I'll take my leave." Qin Feiyang also got up and cupped his hands with a smile. He suppressed his cultivation to the peak dominator level, ready to give the first prince of the dragons a surprise. The Fire Phone people laughed. With a wave of his hand, the bracelet on Yun Zhongtian's hand fell off. Following closely, two people and one wolf, as well as the Daifuku brothers, entered the space-time channel one after another. When the space-time tunnel dissipated, the fiery phoenix tribesman pondered for a while, and then stood up. He took a step forward and merged into the void. The next moment, he appeared in front of a quiet courtyard. The courtyard was located in the center of the dragon lair. There were no gorgeous decorations, but every brick, every tile, every blade of grass and tree seemed to contain a charm. Feng Ho. The Fire Feng people stood outside the door and bowed respectfully. What's the matter? In the courtyard immediately, a gentle voice. The fiery phoenix patriarch said, I believe you already know about Qin Feiyang's appearance, right? Yes. The phoenix empress voice rang out. I'm here to beg for forgiveness. The Fire Feng people lowered his head and said, You are indeed guilty. However, letting Xiaowu and Xiaowei unlock the door of potential is also to help them. When they grow up, it will also be a good thing for the Feng people. It can be considered as offsetting. However, you have to know your limits. Feng Ho reminded. Thank you, Feng Ho, for your understanding. I will know my limits. The Fire Feng people nodded. Okay. As for the matter of Bing Runing and your daughter, let the juniors deal with it. You seniors shouldn't interfere. Feng Ho said. I definitely won't interfere, but that old fellow of the Ice Phoenix race might not just stand by and watch. The Fire Feng people were quite worried. Don't worry, I will restrain him. Feng Ho smiled faintly. Thank you, Feng Ho. Then I won't disturb your meditation. After the Fire Feng people finished speaking, he turned around and left. When he turned around, he let out a long sigh of relief. As the owner of the Phoenix Nest and the strongest person in the Sky Cloud realm, Feng Ho didn't dare to say anything in other places, but in the Phoenix Nest, nothing could escape her eyes. Therefore, he was afraid that Feng Ho would blame him. Qin Feiyang, Golden-Winged Wolf King, Yin Xiang. It seems that there are many talents in this generation. But what the Fire Feng people didn't know was that after he left, Feng Ho's murmur sounded in the courtyard again. It seemed, not only did she know about the Phoenix Nest, but she also knew what happened in the Heavy Domain, White Crane Island. At this time, it was almost noon. Although the sky was clear in the Phoenix Nest, the sky above the Sky Cloud Ocean was still covered by dark clouds and heavy rain. The atmosphere on the White Crane Island was already very heavy. Accompanied by the continuous rain and the dark sky, the atmosphere became even more depressing. It's almost noon, why hasn't he appeared yet? Does he really not dare to accept the challenge? Many people had a trace of disappointment in their eyes. Because in their eyes, Qin Feiyang was equivalent to their faith. Seeing the person they believed in not dare to accept the challenge, they would definitely be disappointed. The people of the dragons and Feng people also frowned and didn't say a word. Only Long Chun and the young man sitting in the sky weren't affected at all. They leisurely tasted tea and drank wine. Forget it, let's retreat. There's no need to waste time on such a coward. Bing Runing couldn't help but look at the whole scene and sneered. Her words were full of sarcasm. What did you say? Who are you calling coward? Qin Feiyang didn't appear. Maybe he doesn't care about you guys at all. You guys aren't worth his time. Someone said angrily. Bing Runing looked at the person who spoke and a cold light flashed in her eyes. Only you guys are allowed to mock and ridicule us, but we're not allowed to speak? The person who spoke was also quite unyielding and looked at Bing Runing angrily. A bunch of ants, how dare you be so arrogant? Bing Runing's eyes turned cold and a mighty power of the law emerged. It surged like a tide towards the person who spoke. It was formed by the law of ice. The pouring raindrops instantly froze into ice in the void. The sea below also quickly froze and the cold wind was bone-chilling. The world immediately turned into a world of ice and snow. The person who spoke didn't have a high cultivation level. When they saw this scene, a sense of fear emerged in their hearts. Boom. But at this time, a space-time passage appeared in the sky. Everyone looked up and their eyes were full of anticipation. Could it be Qin Feiyang? The first figure walked out. It was a lady in a red dress. It was Princess Huafeng. Sister. When Pyrotechnic Glow saw this, a trace of surprise appeared on his face. The Daifuka brothers also appeared. They stood beside Princess Huafeng and scanned the crowd below. Finally, their eyes fell on Bing Runing. Bing Runing, what are you trying to do? Princess Huafeng glanced at the surging law of ice. Flames immediately rolled out, and the world suddenly turned into a big furnace. The frost in the sky melted. Finally, the flames surged and collided with the law of ice. The moment the ice and fire met, an aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth was born. The stronger people in the crowd immediately stood up and used various methods to seal the fluctuations of the battle and protect the people behind them. After all, there were so many people watching. There were naturally many perfected dominators and great dominators. Why did she come out? Did Qin Feiyang let her go? Bing Running looked up at Princess Huofeng and frowned slightly. When she glanced at the Daifuka brothers, her pupils suddenly shrank. Why were these two brothers here too? Could it be that this woman had already returned to the phoenix nest? Did that mean that the Firefang people already knew the truth? I didn't expect that such a small battle would alarm so many people. Accompanied by a faint laugh, Qin Feiyang, White-Eyed Wolf, and Yin Zhongtian also walked out of the space-time passage. Qin Feiyang. I knew he would come. The scene was instantly stirred up. Those who were disappointed immediately had joy in their eyes. At the same time, the dragons, Feng people, Bing Running, and the fire dragon, who was lying on Long Chen's shoulder, all had a cold glint in their eyes. The grudge between Qin Feiyang and the fire dragon was obvious. Not only did Qin Feiyang want to kill the fire dragon, but the fire dragon also wanted to get rid of Qin Feiyang. As for the dragons, other than the little princess, they had all suffered at the hands of Qin Feiyang. Naturally, they hated him to the core. Therefore, following Qin Feiyang's arrival, the atmosphere at the scene became rather strange. The surrounding crowd was cheering, while Bing Running and the others all had gloomy expressions and killing intent. Only Long Chen and the youth were calm. Yin Zhongtian has come out. Looks like the trip to the phoenix nest went smoothly. At the back of the crowd, Elder Hua, the Demon Palace Lord, and Chu Yin stood together. Elder Hua secretly smiled. The Demon Palace Lord and Chu Yin looked at each other. This kid's ability was really not simple. He could even deal with the people of the phoenix nest. Moreover, the appearance of Princess Huofeng and Qin Feiyang together meant that the grudge between them had been resolved. This was a good thing. At least, in the future, Qin Feiyang and the others would no longer have to worry about the revenge of the Feng people. Pyrotechnic Glow rushed to the front of Princess Huofeng and frowned. Sister, are you okay? I'm fine. Princess Huofeng waved her hand. Her gaze locked onto Bing Running. Pyrotechnic Glow heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. You are Qin Feiyang? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Pyrotechnic Glow said. Alright, since you're here, let's start the battle. Start the battle? Princess Huofeng and the Daifuka brothers were stunned. Qin Feiyang also looked at Hua Zihui in astonishment. This brat is very confident. However, he is merely a perfect dominator. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, You should go to one side and stay there. Are you looking down on me? Pyrotechnic Glow raised his eyebrows. Ah. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Was he so obvious? To be honest, he really didn't put Pyrotechnic Glow's strength in his eyes. Little brother, don't mess around. Aren't I fine now? Princess Huofeng secretly shouted. Pyrotechnic Glow was slightly stunned and said suspiciously, Sister, are you having a fever? Why are you scolding me? He hurt you, so I must avenge you. Princess Huofeng's face darkened. She looked at the two middle-aged women behind Pyrotechnic Glow and said, Aunt May, Aunt Lan, look after him. Yes, Your Highness. The two women nodded respectfully, but they were also puzzled. Why did it seem like the first princess was protecting Qin Feiyang? Qin Feiyang, you didn't disappoint me. Suddenly, the Dragon's Crown Prince's voice sounded. He stepped forward and walked toward Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at the Dragon's Crown Prince and frowned. How could he be a perfect dominator? One had to know that the Dragon's Crown Prince had personally said that he was inheriting the Golden Dragon clan's supreme inheritance. No matter what, he shouldn't be at this cultivation level. Could it be that he was hiding his cultivation level? Chapter 3574. Since you are not interested in Pyrotechnic Glow's challenge, then let our battle begin. The first prince of the dragons stood opposite Qin Feiyang and said with a faint smile, "I'm afraid our battle will have to be postponed." Qin Feiyang smiled and glanced at Princess Huofeng. With a wave of his hand, he sent Yin Zhongtian to the Black Tortoise realm. After all, his Sea of Qi was broken and needed to be repaired. Following closely, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf walked straight towards Long Chen and the young man. The white-eyed wolf looked at the young man from afar and waved his paw. "Little brother, long time no see. Did you miss your brother?" "Long time no see." The young man's mouth twitched. Even with his indifferent state of mind, looking at the white-eyed wolf's despicable appearance, he could not help but want to slap him. So they are old acquaintances. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, Long Chen, and the young man and muttered in a low voice. Long Chen waved his hand, and another chair appeared. He smiled. "Brother Qin, please." Qin Feiyang did not stand on ceremony. He walked over and sat on the chair. He was supposed to be the main character this time, but now he had become a spectator. "What are you pretending for?" The fire dragon sneered. "Yo, isn't this that guy? Why are you here?" "I'm sorry, my eyes were playing tricks on me. I thought it was a little bug that came out of nowhere." The white-eyed wolf screamed and looked at the fire dragon. The fire dragon suddenly burned with anger. Who was he scolding? "Be sensible, don't get yourself into trouble." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly without turning his head. "So arrogant?" The fire dragon immediately jumped up and sneered. "I really want to see if you can last 100 rounds under my hands." 100 rounds. You think too highly of yourself. If you can last 10 rounds against me, it'll be my loss." Qin Feiyang smiled. The fire dragon immediately felt a great sense of humiliation. 10 rounds? He really dared to say that. "Shut up." Long Chen raised his eyebrows. When the fire dragon heard this, a trace of panic immediately appeared in its eyes. It glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang, and once again landed on Long Chen's shoulder. Qin Feiyang glanced at the fire dragon, then looked at Long Chen and asked in confusion, "Why would you let such trash stay by your side?" "I'm not familiar with this place and don't have anyone to talk to, so I decided to stay by your side to relieve my boredom." Long Chen smiled. Qin Feiyang couldn't help laughing. He turned his head to look at the young man, and then looked at the snow python. He said helplessly, "You made me look for you so hard. You can't blame me for that." The snow python immediately expressed its innocence. "Why did you look for us? To be your hired thug for free?" "I'm not interested in that. Isn't it fun to go sightseeing?" The young man yawned and said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He was puzzled and asked, "Then why did you appear again this time?" "To watch a show and drink to relieve my boredom," the young man said. "All right." Qin Feiyang felt helpless. He really had nothing to say to this young man. The crown prince of the dragons glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others. He looked at Qin Feiyang and frowned. "What do you mean by this?" "Don't worry, since I'm here, I won't run away. Let's sit down and enjoy a good show." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. With a wave of his hand, a chair appeared. The crown prince of the dragons frowned and finally walked over and sat beside. Why are they sitting down and chatting? Are they not fighting anymore? What's going on? The surrounding onlookers were puzzled. Boom. Suddenly, a wave of the law of fire emerged. Everyone was shocked and quickly looked at Princess Huofeng. "Sister, what are you doing?" Pyrotechnic Glow also looked at Princess Huofeng in confusion. "Go away," Princess Huofeng coldly said. Pyrotechnic Glow smiled bitterly and followed the Daifuku brothers and the two middle-aged women to the side. "Bing Running, let's settle our accounts first." Princess Huofeng took a step forward and charged towards Bing Running with a wave of fire. "Your Highness, what should we do?" The white-haired old woman, the middle-aged man, and the white-haired old man raised their eyebrows and looked at Bing Running. "What should we do? We've already come this far. Are we going to beg for mercy?" I've long wanted to see who is the #1 person in Feng people." Killing intent flashed in Bing Running's eyes. She instantly turned into a god as the law of ice roared around her body. She slammed her palm towards Princess Huofeng. Boom. The two met in an instant. The collision of ice and fire caused huge waves to rise in the sea. What's wrong with sister? Pyrotechnic Glow frowned. Daifuku said in a deep voice, Your Highness, you don't know. In fact, it was Bing Running who killed Her Highness in the heavy region. What? Pyrotechnic Glow's expression froze. The two middle-aged women also looked at each other. When they came back to their senses, Pyrotechnic Glow asked, So, what Qin Feiyang said to father was true? That's right. It was Qin Feiyang who saved Her Highness. They went to the phoenix nest to meet the patriarch and reached an agreement. Daifuku nodded. What agreement? Pyrotechnic Glow was curious. The truce agreement. We'll talk about it in detail later. After Daifuku finished speaking, he paid close attention to the white-haired old woman and the other two people. These three people were not easy to deal with. He could not allow them to suddenly attack and hurt Her Highness. Damn bitch. I was almost used by her. Pyrotechnic Glow understood and looked at Bing Running with disgust. In the blink of an eye, Princess Huofeng and Bing Running had already exchanged dozens of blows. The aura they exuded was as sharp as a sword. Suddenly, Bing Running's body erupted with the power of devouring. Her snow-white hair danced in the torrential rain. Accompanied by a deafening sound, a palm-sized black divine seal shattered the void and broke through the boundary. With an unstoppable momentum, it suppressed the first Princess Huofeng. Boom. Princess Huofeng was immediately sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood. Law of devouring. Everyone was shocked. Sister. Pyrotechnic Glow's expression also changed. Daifuku stopped Pyrotechnic Glow and comforted him. Your Highness, don't worry. You know how strong Her Highness is. She won't lose to Bing Running. In the void, seeing Princess Huofeng being sent flying, Bing Running took advantage of the situation and chased after her. The black divine seal exuded a destructive power. Divine light flooded the surroundings as it crazily attacked Princess Huofeng. This was a battle between sovereigns. Once the opponent had the advantage, they would inevitably face a storm of attacks. They would not give you any chance to turn the situation around. However, Princess Huofeng was not an ordinary person. Last time it was because of the Ice Phoenix sword. Otherwise, it was unknown who would win. Boom. At this critical moment, the same black divine seal emerged from Princess Huofeng's body. This was also the fifth profound of the law of devouring, the seal of devouring. Princess Huofeng's eyes were like torches. With a wave of her jade-like hand, it instantly turned into a divine seal that was as large as a mountain. Then it shattered the sky and collided with Bing Running's seal of devouring. The two profound were shattered on the spot. Just as the profound was shattered, Princess Huofeng's eyes flashed coldly. A majestic devouring power surged out from her body. The void in front of her suddenly collapsed and turned into a huge vortex. From afar, it looked like a pitch-black bottomless pit. It was bottomless. Following closely, after the two profound were shattered, the law of devouring power surged into the vortex. Looking at this scene, Bing Running frowned. A huge vortex condensed in front of her as she fought with Princess Huofeng for the law of devouring power. It's the law of devouring. It can devour other law of devouring power and transform it into its own. I didn't expect these two women to be so strong. The onlookers were shocked. Who were these people? Usually it was rare to see ultimate laws. But now so many of them had appeared. Don't bother with these useless things. We're both using the law of devouring. Can you devour my law of devouring power? Bing Running snorted. The first profound, the second profound, the 5 profound of the law of devouring came out one after another, bringing with it an earth-shattering power. You're right. Princess Huofeng nodded. The 5 profound roared out. Boom. As the 2 profound of the law of devouring power clashed, heaven and earth collapsed and the surrounding seas were destroyed. The surrounding crowd retreated. Those perfection sovereigns took action one after another, isolating the shockwaves from the battle. When the dust settled, Princess Huofeng and Bing Running both took a few steps back. There was a trace of blood at the corner of their mouths. The law of devouring is indeed strong. The white-eyed wolf muttered and transmitted his voice. I've decided to choose the law of devouring for my sixth law of devouring. Qin Feiyang glanced at the white-eyed wolf and shook his head. Actually, the lethality of all ultimate laws is about the same. They each have their own advantages. There's no need to specially choose one. I think you should go for the law of life now. The law of life? The white-eyed wolf was taken aback. That's right. You now have the law of time, the law of karma, the law of space-time, the law of destruction, and the law of death. The supreme profound of the law of time can give you invincible speed. The law of karma and the other supreme profound of the law of time are all extremely powerful. So, if you have the chance to obtain the supreme profound of the law of life, you'll have a powerful recovery ability. Then you'll be invincible. Qin Feiyang chuckled inwardly. Now that I think about it, it does make sense. The white-eyed wolf nodded and chuckled. All right, the sixth law of life will be it. It changed just like that. Can you be more loyal? Qin Feiyang looked at him in disdain. What you said makes sense. Of course, I'll listen to you. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. At the same time, Long Chun sized up Princess Huafeng and Bing Ruoyan. He was puzzled. Brother Qin, they're both from the Feng people. Why are they fighting? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Many things happened before you appeared in the heavy region. Long Chun nodded in realization. He was a smart person. After hearing Qin Feiyang's words and seeing Princess Huafeng and Bing Rening's attitude toward each other, he could roughly guess what had happened. Bing Rening looked at Princess Huafeng and smiled. It seems that our strength is on par. On par. Princess Huafeng smiled disdainfully. Along with the emergence of the law of devouring, the law of karma also roared out. What? Bing Rening's face changed and her face was filled with disbelief. Even the people from the dragon's side were shocked. This woman actually grasped two great supreme laws? What's going on? Doesn't Bing Rening know that she has mastered two supreme laws? The white-eyed wolf looked at Bing Rening's reaction with a trace of doubt in his eyes. She probably doesn't know. Qin Feiyang muttered. If she knew, Bing Rening wouldn't be so surprised. It seemed that the eldest princess was also a little scheming. She had always been wary of Bing Rening. It was no wonder that Princess Huafeng was so confident. Are you surprised? When I comprehended the law of karma, I knew that I would have to fight with you sooner or later. So I announced that my fifth law was the law of swords. You always thought that our strength was on par, but you didn't know that I had already surpassed you many years ago. Princess Huafeng smiled proudly. The two supreme laws roared in the void, and the divine aura surged, shocking everyone present. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.